Texas Barons Podcast. Let's go.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Man, here we go.
All right.
What's up, everybody? Today we have a super special guest. It's actually our furthest away guest coming into Wichita today. His name is Jackie Davis. His artist name is Juba. You may have heard of him. He's came to 9th Street Studios, had a solo expedition, and we're going to hear about his story today, how he got into the art, everything behind the art, and just kind of hear about his life and everything else we get into. So, but first I wanted to just kind of small announcements. The show may be slowing down now. I'm having to get a 9 to 5 now, and I won't probably be able to do it as high frequency as I've been doing it lately, and just had a hard time finding sponsors and people to run ads on. So if you know of anybody that wants to run an ad or maybe sponsor the show, and then I also run Patreon. If y'all just want to, I have so many different subscription models, all ad free. And if you want to support the show, if you want to help this out and continue hearing it on a weekly basis, put the word out. Help me out. Put some, tell your friends. Everyone needs to subscribe. Every subscriber counts and matters, and I appreciate it so much, people. And I'm so thankful for everyone that tunes in, and we're going to keep doing it as much as physically possible. But I'm so happy that I have Jackie here. We don't normally do two artists back to back, and but since you were in town, I just knew I had to get you while you were here. So I'm so glad you're here, man, and I want to hear your story. I want to share your story, and we're going to encourage so many people that maybe go through similar things, and then also maybe there's a young Jackie out there that's not maybe brave enough to share his or her art yet, and then or their story, and I want to use yours to encourage theirs. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. So I always like to ask people, when you found your knack for your art, and then when you kind of got into it, and then let's just kind of start there, man.
So I think I was always kind of drawing since I was a little kid.
Cool.
But I wasn't really practicing it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got in high school, that's kind of whenever I started drawing and really like realizing like, oh, I have something here.
Cool.
And I remember the first time it was like I was drawing Mickey Mouse.
Okay.
All right.
Good starter.
I was bored.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was probably over the summer, and I was just bored, and I was looking for something to do, and I was like, let me just draw something. And I drew this Mickey, and after drawing it, it was so identical to from the reference that I was using. Matter of fact, it was so accurate. I laid it on top, and it was so accurate. It was crazy. And so I went to my mom, and I was like, "Mom, look what I drew! Like, this is crazy."
Cool.
And she was like, "Oh, you traced that? And it was like, "No, I didn't trace it." And she was like, "Let me see." And then so she looked at it and she put it on top. She's like, "You traced this?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." I was like, "This is." I said, "I'm astonished myself."
Mm-hmm.
So that really kind of sparked something, like, oh, I have a talent, and I really should probably look into it and try to do it more. So I started drawing more cartoons.
Cool. Okay.
So I started doing like Taz, and I was a big Goofy fan.
Mm-hmm.
I love Goofy, and so I started drawing for people, just doing different things like that. And then, and I think really things in the art really kind of changed when I met my biological father.
Okay.
And so when I met my father, I found out he was an artist too. Okay. And he was like a really good artist.
Okay.
Like, I mean, he would draw realism, like portraits of people. Okay. And so that really kind of changed like how I started seeing art in my art, and wanting to kind of expand on the talent. Like, I was like, oh, I'm drawing cartoons and this man is drawing like people. Like, this is crazy. Like, and so I started kind of asking him questions about art and how to draw and things like that. And so he became a really big inspiration early on whenever I was doing art.
Okay,
so,
cool. What age are we talking?
So I met my father when I was 18 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's when I first met my biological parents.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so after that, that's when, it was kind of a bittersweet kind of thing.
I understand 100% at that point. Growing up, were you from the time you're 18, you never lived with them?
Yeah. So, kind of taking back to kind of my early childhood.
Yeah.
Really at birth. So both of my parents were alcoholics.
Right.
Right. So it was like stories about, just them always intoxicated, always, it was drugs and different things like that. And my dad was he was a sign painter.
Okay.
So he would paint signs all across Dallas for entrepreneurs and businesses and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But they had an alcohol problem, so you can't do both, right?
Right.
And so eventually we were taken away from my parents, so we was placed in foster care. So it was 5 siblings at the time, so we were all together. And then when we were placed in foster care, my oldest 3 were separated.
Okay.
They were my oldest 3 were placed in a home. I was placed in a separate home, and my youngest brother, he was placed in another home by himself because he had fetal alcohol syndrome.
Okay.
So she was drinking whenever he was born and stuff like that, while he was in her stomach, and my oldest siblings eventually got adopted. Once my parents' rights were terminated because they couldn't get their stuff together. They wasn't showing effort and wanted to get their kids back and things like that. So went into foster care. My oldest siblings got adopted. My youngest brother got adopted to another family, and then I was just in care.
Okay.
And
is that like a government thing?
No, it's kind of it's a state.
Okay.
thing. So the state has conservatorship over a child,
and
so,
then so group living as teens and stuff.
Yeah, so it was, you go into foster homes.
Okay,
so,
okay.
And I didn't just go into one, I went to several.
Several, okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So, and it was different reasons why I was moving around. Like at early age, there was like sexual abuse allegations against foster parents. Not for me, but for other kids in the home. I moved because of abuse on another home, and so it really just, by the time I was 5 years old, I was already like in 6 foster homes.
Okay, man, gosh, damn.
Yeah, so at 5, they tried to get me to be adopted.
Okay.
So there was a family here in Houston that wanted to adopt me, and they was like, well, I remember the caseworker just talking about, I was like, this is going to be like you have a family. You don't have to worry about moving no more, different things like that. And I was like, okay, great. And then get to this family in Houston, and they just abused me.
Okay.
It was a bad situation. So like about a year in, they started abusing me because at this time I had a lot of trauma. I came into this world.
I mean,
trauma.
You lived a lot of life up until 5 years old, man.
Oh, yeah.
In the most, the kiddos are like sponges at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, we always are.
Right.
But then to be so young and to go through so much adversity and not have like a foundation, my
Right.
God, you went through a lot just up until 5, man.
Yeah, like I lost all of my connections. I had a sister that was older than me by, I think, 5 years.
Okay.
That took care of us. So she was like our parent.
Right,
She was
right.
out going to get us food and, making sure we was okay, but nobody was looking after her.
Right.
So I can't even imagine her losing all of her siblings. And being a parent, it's like a parent losing their child.
Exactly.
But it's a child.
Yeah.
Like,
At a young age. So if you were 5, she was about 10 going
Yeah.
through all this. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I can't imagine this stuff, man.
Yeah.
So, so you get to Houston and then it's like immediately bad.
No, not immediately.
Okay.
So I remember getting there. I remember the flight.
Okay.
I never rode on an airplane before. So I remember this flight, and I was so terrified, flying or whatever. And I remember being all under my caseworker, and and then just stressed, because I'm going into a new environment. I don't know these people. I've seen them one time before, and I spent a little time with them, but I don't know them. And so here I am just being left at their door, and saying, this is your new home.
Yeah.
Welcome,
Yeah. And you're old enough to actually somewhat understand of what's going on. You weren't one or two. You had an idea of like, what the hell is going on right now? You were old enough to ask some questions at that point.
Yeah. So I had 2 sisters. I had a mom and a dad. It was African-American family.
Okay.
And things were good. Whenever I first got there and stuff, I had, my own room, and I had an older sister. Both of my sisters were older than me. We had a dog.
Okay.
We had a K9. His name was Max. And it was a nice house, church-going folks.
Okay.
And I think what happened was the trauma just started showing up, right? And I'm sure that they had to expect that, here's a 5-year-old child that's been through a lot, of homes,
Right.
seen a lot of things already, and the trauma just started showing up, going to school, just, fights and just, with kids and, just not behaving, just not listening, and all that stuff kind of just eventually kind of festers into something else.
Right, man. Right.
And so you start seeing the different dynamics in the home, the treatment, their biological kids versus me.
Yeah.
And then the oldest sister hated me.
Okay.
It just got to a point where she just hated me.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I had enuresis, which is me just wetting the bed all the time.
Okay.
So a lot of the punishments came around me wetting the bed because they would get so frustrated every day they would have to change sheets and things like that. And so it started, aggressive language, cussing me out. Then it started the hitting. And then it was things they were trying to do to break the enuresis, like, trying to do things like, I remember one time they spun me around, like they grabbed me by my arms and just, I'm 5, and my legs are like almost hitting the ceiling.
Okay.
And I'm just terrified. All I see is this glass door, and thinking they're going to let go, and I'm just going to go out these sliding doors, like, and just very scared. And then they would just isolate me, leave me in a room by myself where I can intentionally hear them having fun in the room next door.
Gotcha.
Like, they have family nights, Sundays. And, and they'd be like, oh, you was being bad, so you go to the room and we're going to have fun and stuff like that. And it just progressed. Like, I was just told I wasn't this and I wasn't that. And then eventually they tried to tie me up in a bag and put me in an attic. I mean, it was just really crazy. And one of the adoption workers that was down here that was kind of helping with the case would check in. And she had a feeling that that the case was going to, like, this home was going to break down.
Okay.
Because it got to a point where I guess the parents, it was basically me or their marriage.
Okay.
So I was the
straw that broke the camel's back.
Man,
I got.
It's like,
okay.
hey, we can discard him.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it was kind of one of those things. And so
I understand, but I don't understand their point of view.
Yeah.
I just can't. As a new dad, I just can't. You know.
Man.
And then being a new dad gives me this new outlook over children, and then of course I would go to the death for mine.
Right.
But then when I'm around my friends or even just random strangers, you have an outlook for kiddos, like make sure that kid's kind of close to the road, don't get too close to the road, or like if you see a man or woman, like a grown up, that's kind of making you uncomfortable, or your spidey senses tingle, you just kind of scan and watch for kiddos. It's just, I feel like my mom always explained it like when she had my oldest brother like this, she felt like she turned into a lion. Like, I have to protect this baby. And then that kind of took over me as well, especially with mine. But you just have an outlook for kiddos. So I cannot physically comprehend whatever would happen through these people's brains. So
I think it and I'm imagining, at this time, this is what early 80s or late 80s, going into the 90s.
Okay.
There probably wasn't a lot of training around children with traumatic backgrounds.
Right.
That just kind of had these, I didn't have connections, I didn't have a mother and a father, and being so young, you yearn for that, So, I'm not giving them an excuse at all, but I'm just kind of thinking like, well, maybe they just didn't have the training that they really need to take on the things that I was bringing to the table, which was a lot of trauma, which is going to dictate a lot of my behaviors and things like that. It's going to make things complicated. And so that placement broke down, that adoption broke down.
Okay.
And I was placed back into foster care.
Okay.
What's interesting about it is, like, I knew that I didn't want to be there at that adoptive home because of things that was going on that was very hurtful. But I remember whenever I went into the next home, back into the system, I remember the caseworker was coming out to visit, and she saw that I was having so much conflict of not knowing what I wanted, because I wanted to be in this home because at that time it was safe.
Right.
But I also wanted to go back to that one because, they wasn't strangers anymore. Now I'm back with strangers.
Yeah.
So just imagine that the complexity.
Right.
And just a 5-year-old child's brain of trying to figure out how to navigate this situation.
For sure. And then they call that like abuse sympathizers, or like whenever you whenever certain things come to light and then questions start happening, some victims end up maybe protecting their abusers, because you, like you said, you knew them, you probably considered them family at this point, and it was your common ground or your only foundation that you did have. And then as a young man, as a young boy, my God, these are such hurdles to navigate through. Even for a grown man, you at your age now would probably have a hard time navigating this if it was new to you, like it was at that point. Man, my God, man. Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, I'd rather go back to them. Like, I'd rather deal with the abuse. Yeah. Than to be with a stranger or having to move again. Yeah. Because I was tired of moving. Yeah. Yeah. And so this foster home, like, this is, age 5 is when I could really recognize a lot of things. Like, I have, memories, right? That you can really remember certain things. So I think it just got worse from there. Okay. Because I was in this next foster home and it was so bad. It was probably the most abusive home that I had been in. Okay. And so it was the same thing, wet in the bed, and the behaviors at school. They were probably coming from school, coming to get me out of school more frequently now, because I just had this other traumatic event that happened. So I'm trying to figure out how to cope, and how do you cope whenever you're kind of in another different world now? Yeah,
and nobody's giving you a hand to be like, dude, I got you. Yeah,
And then so it just kind of got worse, and they started beating me, like, with belts, extension cords. I mean, just the whole nine. And
is this the same original family, or is this a new?
This is a new foster home. This is a foster home because I was adopted. That one broke down.
Okay. Now you're back in.
Back with the state again.
Okay. I follow you.
Okay. And then so they're just like, they're off the wall with it. Like, and I think I started noticing the world a little bit differently and started experiencing things that children shouldn't be exposed to. And so I was, they would lock me in closets for long periods of time. And, of course they would beat me, they would mistreat me. And it was, the verbal abuse was really bad. You never amount to anything. Your mother, your father didn't love you. You start hearing these messages and they kind of take a whole nother type of toll on you other than the physical abuse. Yeah. And so, my behaviors at school was just out of control.
I believe it.
I was really angry. Yeah. Really angry kid. And I became very violent. And I became violent to everybody, and everything. Got to a point where I even killed the family dog. Right. Like, we had, the dogs had puppies. I think we had about 5 of them.
Okay.
And I ended up throwing 2 in the ceiling fan, and I killed those. I threw 1 against the wall, killed it, and then I put the rest of the puppies in the freezer. Like, it was just, and I had an obsession with blood and seeing people hurt.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was used to.
Yeah. That's what happened to you.
Yeah. So it's really interesting how the brain starts kind of working differently. Going from normal experiences to this abnormal experiences, and you kind of take on what is being done to you. And so, so the interesting thing about this foster home was that they had an investigation, and we can talk about that a little bit later whenever we talk about the art stuff.
Okay, for sure.
And then, but basically, what happened was they didn't remove after having all of this evidence, after the interviews and different things like that. Reason to believe, that's what they call it in the department. And then they didn't do a removal. What they did was they saw that, that these parents were being abusive to the child. They were whooping us, doing all these different punishments that were not very good for these kids, and especially me. And then so they said, "Oh, well, we'll let y'all keep the kids. We'll just give y'all counseling."
Oh my God.
So that'll fix everything, right? That'll fix it all.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until,
And it was probably state funded counseling too.
Sure.
So
yeah,
it
they're
not,
probably paying for it,
like somebody there's a professional right down the hall from me, and me or you would go sign up and pay out of pocket to sit with her, and the state just has other people, and they're held back by money and whatever, and they don't always get the cream of the crop. So those people that had guardianship over you weren't getting the best counseling. So
And then so the other thing was that I needed a better role model, so I needed to spend more time with the father that was there, the foster father, because he wasn't always present, because he was working and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then, but things didn't change, right? It got so bad that I tried to commit suicide, and I was about 6 years old.
Damn.
So I end up, I had a sister at that time, a foster sister, and she would take medication. Of course, I was taking a lot of medication for my behavior. And then I took her pills. She had seizures, and so I took these pills, and I just downed the whole bottle. And it got to a point where I woke up in the hospital.
Okay.
And they was like, "Man, you are just lucky to be alive." And so I went to Children's Medical Center, stayed on a psychiatric ward for about three weeks or a month. They had to monitor me. And it's crazy to think that, like a 6-year-old would be going through trying to commit suicide.
Yeah. And then not have so many other questions like, wait, why the hell is a 6-year-old feeling these things?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of environment is he going through in order to learn these horrible things, in order to feel these horrible things, And as a culture and society, I feel like it's just lack of education on the topic, and then the whether it be the state or whoever, we just didn't know what we know now. And the resources weren't there back in the day. And because you said this was about late 80s or early 90s?
Yeah, early 90s.
So, it's just, it was kind of almost taboo at that point to recognize mental health at all for adults or children, so.
Yeah. And I was going to counseling. They put me in counseling, and of course they gave me a lot of medication. I was so doped up. And I think, when you look back at it, sometimes I think whenever they was giving me counseling, it was almost for like the moment, to control the behavior in the moment and what was going on. And there was I don't remember there ever being a deep dive in what had happened before I got here. This is a difficult transition, but really talking about some of the things that actually happened in this home. So the only way that they knew about the things that were happening in this previous adoption was at the time I had a CASA worker, which is a court-appointed special advocate.
Okay.
And that's what I do. Right now, I'm a supervisor there.
Okay.
Right.
Man.
So usually every county has a CASA program.
Okay.
Wichita Falls has one. And these are volunteers that go out and they're assigned to these cases.
Okay.
To help advocate for the children's needs.
Yeah.
What is in the best interest of this child. And so it's like a non-biased kind of perspective to give to the judge.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting paid. Right. And so she was the only person I really knew and trusted, and I knew her at a younger age, before I got adopted and stuff like that, because she followed my case. But one day she came over and I told her like all these things that were happening or had happened in this previous home, and she just could not believe it. Like, she was like, "You've never told anybody this," and so she was really floored about it. And but I don't think that they really addressed some of those issues and the things that were happening. They just saw the behaviors that I was in that moment in that time they were trying to address.
Just doing damage control rather than trying to fix the actual problem.
Right. Yeah. I mean, could the problem be fixed?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things. It's like, I don't think that I was looking for a remedy. It was just I needed to talk about it.
Yeah.
I needed somebody to help me navigate what was happening to me. And sometimes I didn't feel like that was happening. And maybe in some instances I was able to talk about it, but I was placed back into the environment of the people that were hurting me. It's like, how do you do both? How do you find healing and continue to be abused, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't until there was an incident where a kid almost drowned in the bathtub, and then they decided to go ahead and remove.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I mean,
It was crazy.
What's a drowning versus a suicide attempt?
Right.
How are you going to weigh that any differently at all?
Yeah. And it even what's crazy about it was like there's sexual abuse allegations, right? And this is where I learned about sex early on as a child.
Way too early on.
Yeah, they had an older kid. Their son was an older son, and I remember walking in the bedroom, and he's like having sex with this girl.
Okay.
Like he was a teenager, and so you think that's okay, and you go back and you try to repeat that. With the kids that's your age. And it was just crazy. I was learning at such a fast pace, and then these other foster kids that are here also have these different experiences, and they're putting it on you too. So you're all just basically absorbing everybody's trauma in this home.
Just melting pot.
It's just a melting pot of trauma, and we're all just sharing it, right? Like
And
you're exposing me to
nobody-
this, I expose you to this, and then there's no remedy to it.
Yeah, exactly. And was all the other foster kids roughly around the same age as you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, damn. Man.
Yeah, so there was they were all pretty much the same age.
Yeah. And then it's easy to sit back and then Monday night quarterback this, but it just sounds like you fucking needed a hug, man, and an adult to listen to you, and then it's
and
just
to nurture me.
Yeah.
I felt like I was just neglected, and I think a lot of it was, it was just because of the behaviors. Like, I mean, it was just I was out of there.
Yeah.
I was
and they were
just-
writing you off.
Right. They was like, oh, I don't know what to do with him. Let's just beat him. He just needs his butt whooped.
Yeah.
Like, and that was not working.
Clearly for years it wasn't working. And then, but I'm like curious now, because I'm not familiar with the foster care system at all. And then so I'm learning as you're talking. And then so with such serious allegations going on from you, other kids, other traumatic things happening with other kids, it's not just you, and it's not just one particular home. Now it's happening in 2 and then 3 if you consider your original home. It seems to be that this chaos was so normal that they didn't bat that big of an eye at it. That they're just like, well, this just happens everywhere. Or that's kind of the sense that I'm getting from it,
I think as a kid you start normalizing certain things, these experiences, and I think that's really toxic. And
100%.
this is really interesting because that's transferable into adulthood, right? because you're taught at an early age, you're never going to be anything, you're never going to do anything well with your life, no one's going to love you. All of those messages really affect your adulthood, and it just like transfers into that. And for so long you hold on to all of those messages.
Right. It's your whole existence. Yeah.
Right. It almost becomes part of your DNA until you're actually able to recognize it and say, oh, yo, I've been doped in this situation because these are the messages that I should have never heard.
Yeah.
I should have been, they should have been more positive. They should have been more proactive and seeing like, you're better than this. These are your experiences. This is not who you are. Yeah. And a lot of times that's what you hear. This is who you are. This is not, foster care is an experience. It's not who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of it is just at that time, like I said, it's not a lot of education, a lot of training. I think we were still trying to understand what mental health is.
Yeah.
Like right now we're having those conversations nowadays,
and
right?
bringing it to light finally, and navigating these waters finally.
Instead of using terms of crazy and different things, which I was accustomed to.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things, like for me, that I held on to was I was a bad kid. Like I hear that so much, like and that was just the label that I carried with me. And so I thought for the longest I was just not capable of being loved because I was a bad kid.
Right.
And
you're lied to from the get-go, man. You were just lied to.
Yeah.
And then just like how you were saying, this is how it is, or this is how you are, and that gets locked into your head. But then also you were kind of, it seems like you're starting to learn that, this is just how adults act.
Right.
And then it was on both sides that you were having to just accept that this is shit. And then there was almost nobody that was showing you any difference.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, this is just how adults act. So the older I get, the more I'm going to be in tune to this, whether it be hitting other people or hurting other people in different ways. You had no other example of like, wait, people are amazing and people do love me. Yeah. And so my God, what a fucking trip, just to 6 or 7 at this point.
Yeah, I think, so I have to say, like, my CASA advocate was probably the voice that I needed to hear. She was like the only positive voice. So the sad part about it is I didn't get to see her as frequently as I would want to hear those messages that she would always like, it was almost like she knew that they were saying he's a bad kid, and when she comes, she would be like, you're such a courageous kid. Like, you're the most amazing kid that I know. I mean, look at that smile, like, and she would always put all these things on me. And it was really interesting because like, when you hear stuff like that, you start questioning.
Yeah, the narrative.
Right.
For sure. 100%. Like,
are you
what's
sure?
real?
Like, what do you see that is so different?
Yeah.
Because all I'm hearing from them
complete
is,
opposite.
Yeah, and it's like, and I remember like, they would never let me, like the foster parents would never let me kind of sit by myself and actually have a conversation without them being present,
Yeah.
so they can kind of control the narrative. So, so when things were happening, I didn't really tell anybody, like, I didn't even, a lot of times I didn't tell my CASA, I would let her in on little things, but a lot of times I didn't tell her. And like when I did, it was like she was just really shocked.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting, but you kind of carry all these different messages.
For
and
sure.
So eventually that placement I had broke down. I went into another one. I mean, the messages, man, are crazy. So in this one, we had a lot of behavior issues. So usually up until this point, I didn't have any siblings, right? All of my siblings have been gone. My parents are gone. I didn't have nobody. So when I was traveling in these different spaces, it was by myself. So I ended up getting into this other foster home.
Are you still in Houston at this time?
No, I actually back in Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I get into this other home, and I'll never forget it. The first day, I walked in, and well, no, I'll take that back. So I remember I was in this foster home by myself, and there was a new sibling group that was coming a new foster group,
Okay.
a sibling group that was coming, and I was kind of excited. I was like, oh, other kids, of course, and so they tell me to surprise them, and so they put me behind the door, and then so these kids come in, and I jump out from behind the door and like like trying to scare them, and they just like looking at me like I'm crazy.
Oh my gosh, dude!
so-
They were just as hardened as scarred as you were, man.
Like,
Yeah.
And so what was really interesting about the sibling group, it was 3 of them, and I ended up connecting so well with the oldest sibling.
Okay.
He was around my age.
Okay.
I was probably about 8 years old around this time, 7 or 8, and it was the first time that I had ever heard somebody else's story.
Okay.
If this dialogue of exchange of stories of what it was like to be with our biological parents. Well, at that time, I didn't know what my biological mom looked like. I didn't even remember her.
Right.
At all. Like, if you was asked me to describe my mom, I would have never, I couldn't tell you.
Right.
Because I lost her at such an early age.
At 4 or at
No, I was 18 months at the time.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So when I went in foster care, I was 18 months.
okay.
So,
Yeah, you had no history.
Yeah, so and they usually have a year to get their children back, but they were terminated. So, and then I think they did it pretty early on because they just weren't participating in services and different things like that.
Okay.
So it was really cool to hear, like, I had this foster brother who had to survive, and it just made my story look like nothing.
Oh my God.
Because he was older, right?
Yeah.
So he had 3 siblings that he had to take care of.
Yeah, just like
And
your
so-
sister kind of went through. Okay.
Exactly, same thing. And he would have to go to the gas stations and steal food and different things like that to feed his siblings, because his mom was on drugs and stuff like that. And it was like, wow, like it was like kind of like the first time like I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Okay.
Even
Good.
though, even though you see other kids in foster
Right.
care, but you
Right.
just never hear their story, so
Right.
you don't know why they there, right? We just all kind of just here,
Yeah.
And so, and we became like best friends.
Good, man.
Like
Good.
and it evolved into a relationship of being brothers.
Okay.
And then me adopting them as my brothers, and
Good.
them adopting me as my
Was
brothers.
it all 3 boys?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
And so, and he was very protective of me. You know what I mean? So we went to
Good.
school. He wouldn't let nobody mess with me. And
Good, man.
so it became like a camaraderie. It like this brotherhood just kind of just sparked, and everybody knew it. Like it was the first time that I felt in my life where I could laugh.
Good.
Like I was
okay.
having fun.
Just
you know?
finally a light at the end of the
Right.
tunnel. Yeah.
And it just this little piece, But we were still being abused.
In this new home.
this new
It's
home.
same shit.
Yeah.
New home. Okay.
But it looked different,
okay.
right? And so
Wore a different mask.
yeah, it was like I always kind of think of this home as being like a slave. Like we were like a slave for the family. So they had gardens, and we always had to work in the gardens. We had to pick weeds. We were always outside working, doing something with our hands. We had to, they were a little bit smarter because they couldn't hit us. They knew that they wasn't supposed to hit us, so they would make us sit on a chair for long periods of time. Like you just couldn't go nowhere. And then they would hold books over our heads, and then if you moved, they add another book. It was terrible, But it was a different kind of way of doing it, right? Because they didn't have to leave any scars, right?
Yep.
And so,
Do you feel like you kind of accepted that a little bit easier because you're like, well, at least they're not hitting the shit out of me, or at least they're not.
no,
Okay.
not really,
Okay.
because
You still saw
still
it.
understand it's
Okay.
mistreatment.
Okay. Okay. Good.
You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
you're being mistreated
Right.
based on who you are.
Okay. Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
Just because of who you are.
Okay.
But it was like we would have. It was the first time we could find ways to laugh in a bad situation. You know what I mean? We would joke with each other and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and it was some crazy stuff that we had to go through. And what was really interesting about this foster home was that I didn't recognize the sexual abuse at the time, and it was very perverted. But what she would do is, in the morning time, we weren't allowed to take baths. It was very, like we would take a bath, but it was very sparingly. All right.
Okay.
So what we would have to do is, in the morning time, we would have to get a tub, and we all each had our own tubs, like, you know, and we would have to undress. We all line up in a row. She would sit down in front of us, and we had to undress ourselves and take a bath in front of her, like wipe ourselves down.
Okay.
And at that time, like, you just think it's normal,
Yeah.
you know. But when you get an adult, and I think I didn't recognize this until like a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Like I was like, that was very perverted.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it was just really interesting. It's like, you know, sometimes you don't even recognize
Exactly.
some of the stuff that
It goes
you
to
already
show
did.
how long it can take for your brain to realize, and
Like
and so much that you've grown as a human and a man, and your brain has finally started processing these things. It just goes to show that it still takes time on certain
does.
things to just realize, man, that was fucked up.
It was crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, she would tell us to bend over, you know, and it was just like you watching us.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. And so, but what ended this foster home was one day we was playing. We was in the living room. We was playing. We're not supposed to play in the living room, but we was playing in the living room, and they had this big dice. It was like kind of a soft but very firm big dice that you would sit on.
Okay.
Okay, and so we wasn't really supposed to be playing with the dice.
Okay.
It was like decor. Or whatever. And so me just being me, getting
a
into
kid.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
we started playing with it, started throwing it to each other and stuff. And then I picked it up and I just threw it in the air. And you know how they have those glass dining room table or living room tables, the little that sits in front of the couch. You know? Well, one of my foster brother was leaning over on that table, and when I threw it up, I hit the ceiling fan, and the ceiling fan came crashing down.
Shit.
It almost crushed his head.
Oh shit.
Like, I mean, the whole table was destroyed, like glass everywhere. It was broken half, and my foster dad came in and just was astonished and just held his heart like that and just fell back. Yeah.
Did he have a stroke?
Yeah.
Oh my
Had
God.
a
Did he
heart attack.
die?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then, so what age are you at this
It was
point?
probably, I was about 7, 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. To witness your father figure
Oh, yeah.
just die like that.
I guess who got blamed for that?
You did.
Yeah.
Gosh, fucking damn.
He was blamed for his death.
Because if you can die from something from shock, you have clearly not been taking care of your cardiovascular system. You know, if your body is so sensitive that a tiny branch breaking just like that can set you over the edge, that's your fault, not your fault. That was the man's fault. And my God, of course they fucking blamed him.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't they? That's just kind of the whole theme of this. And I'm not gonna get too mad, but I'm seeing
it's crazy.
it. I'm seeing it through my eyes now, and I'm just like, you want to go strangle these people, you know?
And the interesting part about it is that wasn't the first death that I actually experienced seeing someone die. So if I back up a little bit, in the previous home, I actually experienced death, another foster sibling dying in front of me. It was really interesting because this kind of manifested a new type of thought as a child, that when you're having too much fun, bad things happen.
Oh my God. Okay.
So I remember we were out in our foster parent told us to go out into the driveway and sweep the driveway. And so me and my foster sister went out there, and this is the one that had seizures a lot.
Okay.
And so I remember we was out there dancing, playing, you know, and she would have to come out and be like, "Hey, are y'all sweeping that driveway?" You know, like, yeah. But we was having so much fun. And I just remember the energy at that time. And this is why I can tell the story so crazily, just remembering it so well, is dancing and sweeping and just, you know, having fun. And all of a sudden, my foster sister has a seizure. and then just it's almost like time just stopped. And she hits the ground and she hits her head and she just stops moving.
Yeah.
And I'm just standing over her trying to figure out what just happened. Like, you know, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, it's just like we were just having fun and all of a sudden
Was it just y'all two at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, oh my gosh. And so I run inside and then I tell my foster parent, like, you know, Esma had this seizure. And she comes out, she's like, call 911. And the crazy thing about that, I remember this. It's not funny, but it's kind of funny at the time when you think back. It's like, I was like, what's the number? And like, you know, it was like, what?
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
her other daughter came out and she, you know, ended up calling 911 and stuff like that. But she died. And this was, you know, this is a loss. But this, I recognize this was a different type of loss.
Okay.
This was significantly different than what I ever encountered. Like I've lost people, but there's a physical loss, right?
Of
You know,
leaving,
it's like there's no coming back. But it still felt familiar, you know, because I lost my parents, and then, you know, in my mind they're never coming back. You know, I've lost these other foster parents; they're never coming back.
And your siblings too, your blood siblings.
Yeah. So the interesting about this type of loss was the first time that I had an opportunity to grieve.
Okay.
This is really interesting because it's ceremonial, right? When you lose someone, you know, it's the acknowledgement
Right.
of that loss. And this is the first time that I was able to acknowledge that someone I lost somebody. And I remember when I walked up to the casket, I told my foster parent I didn't know what to say. And she was like, just tell her goodbye. And that's interesting. I never got to say goodbye to anybody.
Yeah.
Ever.
It's heavy. I mean, that's so much to take on.
Oh, man. The first time you get to say goodbye, I lost all these people along the way.
Yeah.
You know, usually if I had to leave another foster home, it was, you know, they have your bags packed. You know, you don't get to say goodbye. It's like, boom, everything just happens so fast.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But here I am laying at at this casket and being able to say goodbye. And I remember going to the car and just crying my heart out. You know, it was just a whole different type of process of loss. Like, you know, and sometimes I just wondered, like, if I was given that opportunity to grieve, to say goodbye, would I have been in a better space?
Yeah.
A lot of those times.
You mean with like the past relationships and foster?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Right.
probably you probably
know what I
just
mean?
have more tools in your tool belt.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I would have got to acknowledge it, but I just felt like the journey has always been you just lose and you lose and you lose
And you keep going.
and you just keep going. You pack up your stuff and you go. And here, you know, it was like a pause in the moment
Yeah.
where I was able to really say goodbye to somebody.
Yeah,
And it was such an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's brand new, man.
It was brand new. Brand new.
Yeah.
And even with the next home when the foster father had died, it was back to the old. Like there was no grieving. We didn't go to no funeral. We didn't
Really?
do,
Okay.
You know, pack up. Y'all got to go.
Okay. They
Y'all
moved
killed
y'all
my
after
husband.
that. Okay.
Y'all killed my
Yeah,
husband. Y'all got to go.
Yeah.
And then boom, off to the next place. Off to the next place.
Gosh,
to the children's home.
Yeah.
To this. To that. You know, and you just keep going. And then finally, we finally got a. The interesting thing about leaving, though, my CASA advocate was really inspirational at this time, and she didn't. We had built such a great. I had built a great relationship with the sibling group that they allowed us. She had to fight for me
Good.
to stay with them. Whatever
Good.
foster home they went to, he needs to go with
Good.
them. Because
Thank
he looks
God.
at that as though those are his brothers and
Yeah.
his brothers. And so they just need to travel together.
Good.
Because the department was like, well, he has no kin to them, so we can just split them up. You know? and she had to advocate for us to stay together.
Good for
which is
her.
incredible, because that really changed the dynamics of my life.
Good.
know.
And what was her name? Your CASA.
Her name was Marlis.
Marlis. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I called her Molly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We have so I had the district attorney on here,
Mm-hmm.
and then his main goal, he's a fighter for children,
Yeah.
children in your position. And then he was explaining that with all the trial cases that they have, all the just the workload that they have, the county as a whole can almost turn a cold shoulder to their victims. And then whether it be lack of communication or just, we want to be there for you and fight for you, but we're also fighting for 25 other families right now. And then luckily, when he got into office, one of his biggest goals was, because he learned from another district attorney, I think, but was a victim advocate.
Yeah.
And then basically a liaison.
Right.
And then her name is Ebony. I'm going to shout her out again because I'm so happy that she's in the position she is. And she takes care of these victims. And then if there's a lapse in time from court cases or whatever it be, she's in contact. And she is, what I loved so much was, she was like the power behind these kiddos. So whenever
Yeah.
these kids had to take stand or they needed some
Testify and
encouragement,
stuff.
and whether it be from videotape or in person, she was there like, I got you. You know, that was her whole job of like, you can do it because I got your back.
Yeah.
And then that's what the vibe I'm getting from this Molly character.
Yeah, she was incredible.
Yeah, man, it just almost makes me like emotional thinking of these kiddos, and you included, of like, you're young and you don't have a voice because you get disregarded as a young person and a kid, and then finally someone fucking listens to you, dude. And then it's part of the movies or the life experiences you see, and you're like, finally, thank God the good guy finally showed up.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you had this.
She would just travel with me, which was crazy, right? So you lose so many caseworkers. I didn't know who my guardian ad litem or my attorney and stuff when I was in care. But she would go to foster home with me, and come and see me wherever I was. And she did that for about 8 years.
Okay.
8 years or so. Very long time.
Okay.
For somebody to be serving a child that's in
that's
permanent
amazing.
managing conservatorship. And so it was really incredible. And the only reason why she ended up not continuing with my case was because she had cancer. At that time, I did not know that.
Yeah.
But she said that she was leaving to go to Paris and stuff like that. I don't ever remember her saying that she was sick. But I remember that was really tough because I felt like she was the first person that ever really loved me.
Yeah, for sure. And have your back, man.
Right. And so, but at that time, I was actually kind of in a good situation.
Okay.
I had a foster parent that was really amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had one that was really amazing. And God bless her. So she just passed away last year.
Okay.
And just an incredible woman. Didn't take no mess from anybody.
Good.
And
Was she single?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Cool.
She
cool.
was a single parent, and she treated us like her own kids. She's like, she told us from the get go. I remember we was in a we was in a group home, and she came and she sat us all down. We kind of meet this foster parent, which was unusual. Usually you just place with somebody.
Okay.
But she came out and she said she wanted to meet us, and kind of give us a somebody, a face with a name and stuff like that. So she sits down and she's telling us about her home and everything. And I remember me and my foster brothers were looking at each other like, yeah. Like,
yeah, this seemed too good to be true. I heard it all before.
Yeah,
yep.
We know how this is going to go. You are no different.
Man, that's just so sad that y'all were just trained like that, or your brain was just trained to think like that.
Yeah, you're conditioned to believe these things. And so, and I remember going there and, she was just so loving and so gentle with us, but very strict.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But never had to hit us or anything. She would pinch us. Now.
Yeah.
She would pinch the mess out of
yeah.
us. But what was interesting is like she gave us, So kind of like the same way, like me and my foster brother, we would talk about these situations and laugh. She kind of gave us a safe space to do that.
Okay.
And she would just want to hear the stories.
Okay.
But when we would tell the story, she would laugh with us and stuff like that. And like, she would just help us bring the humor out of it. But she always spin it. And she would always put something positive on it.
Okay.
She was like, I'm sorry that had to happen to you guys. Like, but no one should be ever mistreated like that. You guys are good kids. Y'all got a lot of issues, a lot of problems and things, but y'all are good kids, And so she always reinforced the good in us.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
She sounds amazing.
She
And
was
then
awesome.
it's almost crazy that she sounds like the weird one out of all these
Yeah.
people because everyone else had the same narrative.
Right.
And then she seems like the weirdo to be sitting down.
Yeah, it was foreign.
Yeah, and positive reinforcement and just love and then listening and then and reassuring you this isn't supposed to happen like this. And this is a normal scenario. I'm going to hold you accountable, but I'm going to love you at the same time. And so I mean, how did that feel? I'm sure your brain went a billion different directions starting to feel this.
Yeah, like I think what happens is like, trauma kind of tells you like, this is not going to last long.
Okay.
Right? Like eventually she'll find something and she ain't going to want you no
Okay.
more,
Okay.
Right? That's what you kind of, that's what your brain starts telling you, And so when I get in trouble and stuff, and she was still right there, and then she was like, okay, I'm disappointed in you because you didn't have to do this or X, Y, and Z, and yeah, you're going to have a punishment, but I don't got to hit you. I'm going to just take this, and this. It was like, oh, this is what a normal home is supposed to be.
Okay.
There was a lot of normal stuff. Like I had cousins.
Yeah.
Like I adopted her family.
Okay.
I had
Did she have any kids besides y'all? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, she was very close to her kids, and
Okay.
they were older.
Okay.
So, and in her she had grandkids, and so those were our cousins.
Okay.
And everything like that, and everybody knew us at school because she was a bus driver.
Okay.
So everybody knew don't mess with Ernestine Stevenson's kids.
Okay.
Everybody knew
Cool.
that. You
cool.
don't mess with her babies.
Yeah.
And you don't mistreat them.
Okay.
And we knew that.
Good, man.
So it was a different type of level of understanding. It was foreign, but it was like, whoa, like, here's somebody that really wants to protect us.
Yeah, and this doesn't hurt.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was so protective. So when the adoption came back up, they was like, she told me, it's like, they're thinking about, you should be adopted again, and do you want to be adopted? I said, oh, hell no.
Why would you want to?
Why? I have a good home here.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I got my brothers over here. I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, baby, I'm getting old. I'm getting older, and you need a family.
Yeah.
You need to be in a family environment, someone who you have a mom and a dad, different things like that. And one of the things she told me, she's like, you can't go around life believing that everybody is going to hurt you.
Okay.
And that really kind of stood differently in my soul because
sure.
that's what I understood and knew, that people were out here just betraying kids like me because I had too many issues and problems, and because I was a foster kid. I kept the labels that everybody gave me.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was possible, and I was like, oh, this is a good situation. So I remember one time we went to, it's kind of interesting how just God works in mysterious ways. And I was going to an adoption. They were going to meet a potential adoptive parent.
Okay.
And so we had to go to the CPS office, and I had to go because I wasn't in school at the time. And so I went up there, and they told me, it was like, hey, we're going to this meeting. Jackie needs to go somewhere else. We'll have Alicia watch him.
Okay.
And so we'll have somebody watch him. So they opened this door, and they was like, hey, Alicia, this is Jackie. Can you watch him for us? We're about to do an adoption meeting and meet a parent or whatever. And she looks up, and she's like bawling. I mean, she just like screams, and she's like, oh my God. Like, and she's just like running up to me and hugging me and like, oh my God, it's you. And I'm like, who is this crazy woman? Like, she was so excited to see me. And she was like, oh my gosh, I've been wanting to adopt you since she was 8 years old. And, she worked for the state. She was an adoption recruiter. So they had, the pictures and stuff of the kids that needed to be adopted.
Okay.
And she's like telling me, like, I've been wanting to adopt you since you were 8 years old.
Okay.
And you're in my office, and she calls her husband. She's like, "You won't believe who was in my office."
Oh my
it's
God!
Jackie, and then she's calling her kids, showing me pictures of her kids.
Oh
and
my
I'm
God!
Like,
okay,
this is nuts.
Yeah. You're like, what?
Like,
why is someone liking me right now?
Man.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Whoa, this is crazy!" And so it was so exciting, but it was so foreign, right? And so I remember.
And you didn't know this woman
I
at all?
didn't know her at
okay.
all.
Okay.
She knew everything about me, though.
Okay.
She was like, yeah, I've been wanting you since she was 8 years old. There's pictures of you right there. And I knew the moment I saw you.
Wow.
She said, the moment I looked at your picture, I knew you were my child.
Oh, my God.
It's like, what?
Okay.
Like, so you kind of brush it off because, it's like, okay, that's cool. Like, and so, but I remember leaving. One, my foster parent was mad.
Okay.
She was pissed. And then secondly, I had a feeling inside that I never had before. And it was this excitement because I've never seen anybody be excited about me.
Okay.
Like, I mean, she was so excited about
She's
me.
crying,
Like,
man.
She was crying. She was like, it was like, I thought she was crazy. I was like, oh, she just don't know, right? she don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, she don't understand these behaviors I got, and so, and my foster parent, she was so mad because she said that the woman that was in there that they were interviewing, she had a hat cocked to the side. She was talking about how much money she had and she could do this for me and that. And she was like, if the state tries to get that woman to adopt you, I will sue everybody.
Okay.
I will sue the state. It ain't no way that I'm allow you to go with that woman.
Okay.
She is not, no. She was just like, no.
And this was your main foster mom that you loved.
Yeah. And so she was like, she was mad. She was like, she ain't taking you, Jackie.
Good.
She's like, she was on there just so cocky about this, that, and the third. She was like, no way. And then I was telling her about my experience. And she was like, oh, really? And, and so next thing you know, I got news that crazy woman was trying to adopt me.
Okay.
And she pursued that adoption and ended up adopting me at age 13.
And were you flying solo at this point? Did you only get adopted by yourself?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
okay,
did.
okay.
That was really hard.
Yeah.
But, so I call her my grandmother, my former the foster placement that I was at that I loved. I called her my grandmother after I left. And she still had my sibling group that was there.
Okay.
So she was always telling me, you can come back anytime, you can come see me. And I would always call her, be like, I don't like this bitch. So, because I was trying to adjust to adoption. Like, a lot of people, it's like, oh, he's adopted, it's a happy story. It's a happy ending.
Yeah, but firsthand that it's not. Or it can not be.
It could be. It's just that, you're still holding on to all these things that you've learned, that you've been conditioned to learn. And so you're taking that in and expecting this type of outcome. So it's like, when will this placement break down? When will they ship me back? When will they say they don't want me anymore?
Yeah, or want a divorce. If it's not me, it's a divorce. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be something, and I'm going to end up right back where I was. And so you're always waiting for that.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, you're adjusting to something that's so foreign.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is a regular family. And the whole family, I remember they created me a whole videotape of everybody in the family.
Okay.
Everybody was saying, hi, Jackie, we can't wait to see you, and all these different things before I got adopted. And it just made it so, it just made it real. And then I also got to spend 2 weeks with them, a week with them before I got adopted.
Okay.
And I came back with 2 broke hands.
Okay.
because I was having so much fun.
Okay, you're playing.
We was playing. We was playing football.
Okay.
And the dog ran in front of me. I had all my cousins. They were just dragging. At that time I had some massive calf muscles. Like I was really strong.
Yeah.
And I'm just dragging them. We're playing football in the living room, and I end up falling and falling on my hand, and my finger just went straight to the side. Yeah. And so my mom was so scared, just like they think I did something to you and stuff. And then the other one, I end up hitting it on the dresser and end up breaking it as well. And so I had a cast on both. Like I was.
It looked bad, signs. But it seemed good.
Yeah,
Okay.
But it was really good. And then I ended up spending another week, and then I ended up getting adopted. And it was this happily ever after kind of scenario. But it took time to really accept.
Yeah, for sure.
This family.
You had to
long time.
relearn everything. And everything you were learning was going against everything you've been programmed into believing.
Right. Exactly.
Golly, man, it's so much. I mean, and you're still a young man at this point.
Yeah.
And then at 13, now you're going through puberty, and your body's changing, your brain's changing.
Yeah.
You're trying to comprehend things that happened in the past. And so I can only imagine a young man going through all that. So I can imagine going through it right now, and I'm 27 now. So, so it turned out. It happened, and everything was good?
Everything was good.
Okay.
Everything I had, I had uncles, I had cousins, spend the night. Okay. That was one of the things I could never do in foster care.
Right.
You can't spend the night at nobody's house. This normalcy, that's what they call it. So I had all the normal things that a family does. And so it actually turned out really well.
Okay.
I think what I struggled with was the dynamics of accepting the family, trying to. You always feel like you're still an outsider. It doesn't matter. When you're going into a new family, you always find yourself riding solo.
Right.
It's almost kind of like a my mentality of like, they're siblings, and they got each other's back. But if I do something, they'll probably cast me out.
Yeah, I mean, because another family did that to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was the acceptance part. It was the hardest thing to do. I didn't really. Accept my family, and sometimes I'm embarrassed to say it, but until I was in my 20s.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it was like, dang, why did it take me so long? And it was like, it had to come to a point where I was like, my family is not going nowhere. I had to tell myself that.
Good, man.
Now, no matter what I do.
Yeah.
No matter what I do,
Good.
I have a family.
Yes.
And it's permanent.
Yes, and they love you, man.
And they love me.
Thank God, man.
Like, I have such great relationships with all of my kinfolk,
And that's still your family today.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank God, man.
My grandparents are here in Wichita Falls.
Okay.
An amazing shout
You'll
out
have to tell
them.
me after who they are afterwards. We don't have to put them on air.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just really amazing and done some really great things here. Have a church here and everything.
Okay.
And so my parents, of course, they were from Wichita Falls.
Okay.
So we're back and forth.
Okay.
And my dad, his family is here in Wichita Falls too, and stuff like
Your
that.
adopted families from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then where are y'all living now? When they adopted you, were you in Dallas?
No, not at that time. They had moved to the Arlington area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah.
And then was this a African American family?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So believe it or not, I only stayed with a white family when I was like little,
okay,
like toddler.
Okay.
But I've always been in a black family.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And so that is interesting is that, so I'll take you back, like when I was about 8 years old, I had to tell you the story. This is funny. When I was 8, I remember my caseworker came and she was like, hey, I made you a life book, with pictures of your siblings and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, because I didn't remember anybody.
Right.
So I remember
Your biological family book?
my biological family. Yeah, so I was in foster care at that time, and so she gives me this book, and I open it up, and I see these two parents standing there. One is white and one is black, and and it didn't register in my head that my mom was white and my dad was black. But my foster brother, he jumps up behind me. Your mom is white. I was like, I guess so. Like,
I didn't know either.
and I think that's whenever I really kind of got introduced to race.
Okay.
Really in the dynamics of that. Like
Yeah.
that really kind of changed the conversation with like my siblings and stuff
Okay.
like that. Like it was like, oh, you got white in you.
Okay.
I mean, it was like a very different thing. And so, but it was crazy because I was like, wow, like these are my parents. I don't remember them.
Right.
You know, he was asking me like, do they look familiar? You know, I have these white siblings, you know, half siblings that were taken, because my oldest siblings were white. They
Okay.
were half siblings.
Okay.
And then it was me and my brother. But what happened was my mom had actually had to end up having more kids.
Okay.
So she had 4 more kids
Okay.
after we were taken away. I didn't know them. And then so that foster family that was the good one,
Okay.
she ended up connecting me with those younger siblings.
Hey.
You know, so I got to meet them at a younger age. And I think that's what really clicked for me, that I needed to change
Okay.
whenever I saw them. And I was like, I don't want to be that bad kid, quote unquote.
Okay.
I need to change who my behavior and who I want to be
Okay.
because of them. Because
Cool.
I have an example now.
Okay.
You know, and I can't be an older brother and just be a bad example.
Right.
Like there's something that happened right there.
Yeah, man, your brain sparked.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was all like all these things were coming together. The messages from my CASA, from this good foster parent that I had, and then it just kind of grew into even more whenever I got adopted. Like it just, you know, you just start seeing me blossom in a very different way.
Yeah, just with someone finally fucking giving you that hug, that
Right.
love, that attention.
Yeah.
Who would have ever known that a kid would, blossom after that?
Right.
Who would ever think that crazy thought of like, damn, if we're good to these kiddos, they will live to their
would've-
full potential.
Right.
Man.
Where did that formula come
I
from?
know.
It's like-
We're on a positive note. Let
Yeah.
me take a pause. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real
Okay,
quick,
and
then
I'll
we'll-
run after you.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Dang. All right, we're back. We had to take a little bathroom break. We brewed us some coffee. It's pretty freaking cold in here, but
Yeah.
we're back in it, man. And we were actually talking about some pretty cool stuff while we're gone, and maybe we can just get back into it. But you were telling me you were seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. You were
Yeah.
talking about 13 to 20 years old. You're finally accepting a family,
Yeah.
and then you can jump right back in that, or you can fast forward. Feel free. Just let's dive back in.
Yeah, so we can kind of fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
So I got this amazing family. I thrive. I think you start kind of thinking about, kind of in high school, what do you want to do?
Okay.
So the art starts kind of playing into like college now.
Okay,
Right? So
okay.
I graduate high school. Whew, didn't know if I was going to be able to do that.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah,
I was
and
so
you did
behind
it.
on education, but I did.
Cool, man. Congrats.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
And college was always one of those things. It's whenever you come from where I come from, it almost seems like it's an impossible thing to do.
Okay.
It's not like and especially back in those days, it wasn't always like a conversation on the table for kids that are in care. It was just not. You don't even think about that.
Right.
You just want to get out of the foster care system. So I was like, I got to go to school because I was still in the mentality that I would end up homeless.
Okay.
Because those are the statistics
Yeah.
for kids like me. And I was like, well, one of the things I'm going to do, one, I know I have to work and I'm going to work hard. And
Okay.
so I started working, and then I'll go to school and I try to see what that's about because I really want to do something great with my life.
Okay.
So I started working at Kroger.
Okay.
And I work hard.
Cool.
Matter of fact, work kind of overshadowed school.
Okay.
I actually worked more than I would want to participate in school.
And are you talking university at this time or high school at this time?
I was a community college.
Okay,
Tarrant
cool,
County.
cool.
Shout out to anybody that's been to Tarrant County.
Yeah.
And so I go there. I take these art classes, and I'm just like, this is so great, because I was going to major in graphic design.
Okay.
So I go, do these classes. I'm taking all these art classes. And I'm getting really involved in art, and I was good with computers. So I was computers and art. So I was on graphic designs, So I do all these things, and I'm really getting more heavily into art and drawing and stuff like that. And of course, my dad at the time is a big influence.
Okay.
So we have a love-hate relationship. So I meet him, I start learning about him and who he was. And my parents were still kind of doing the same things.
Okay.
That got us placed in foster care in the first place.
Okay.
But the reason why I wanted to meet them was because I was kind of going through this identity crisis. I didn't know who I was.
Right.
I didn't know what I looked like. Right. I wanted to know, my siblings, because I didn't know my siblings either. And I was like, I just needed something I needed a foundation.
Right.
I feel like I've kind of built a house on
sand. That's an old parable,
right.
It's an old Bible story. Yeah.
Right. So I had this great family, but I just didn't know where I came from, and I felt like that was the missing piece, And if you don't know where you're going, where you come from, you don't know where you're going.
Right.
And so, anyways, my dad and I kind of started building a relationship based off of art.
Okay.
And he started teaching me like, hey, you need to learn how to draw. You don't know how to draw.
Okay.
Like, okay. So he was like, you need to learn how to draw the figure and the form, to understand depth and perception and how to see, shading, different things like that. And so I started drawing figure drawing.
Okay.
And then I started kind of dabbling into realism. And started drawing like portraits because I was trying to build these skills that he had.
Yeah.
And I felt like during the process of that, I could not do it well enough.
Okay.
He would never give me any type of compliment.
Right.
No, it was always harsh criticism.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like, oh, that doesn't look like da-da-da-da. Like you didn't do this right. And it got to a point like I was just so bummed, and I felt like I just could not exceed his expectations.
Right.
And I felt like I was progressing. Like I was doing really good.
Yeah.
I was drawing some really cool portraits and stuff. Like it wasn't like his, but I was kind of doing my own thing, and it was really good. I was getting the skills, and so I think it got to a point in this relationship that I was having, with school and then with him, art started to kind of transform itself for me because I was trying to find my way in it. Like I think every artist kind of goes into these phases of, right, you're learning a skill, you're applying the skill, but now that you have this skill set, where are you going to take it?
Okay.
You know what I mean? How are you going to make it yours?
Yeah.
And my dad was a big influence in that because it was like, it got to a point where I was like, I just felt like I could not satisfy him.
Right.
And the more that I tried to draw and do this art, I felt like I was trying to do it his way.
Right. You probably were just to catch up to
him. And also, but I felt like I was learning from him too. It was bittersweet, but I felt like I wasn't myself in this art. Drawing realism was it was not satisfying to me.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to draw portraits. Like
how early on did you learn this? This isn't my thing.
Well, I think I was like kind of in my mid 20s.
Okay.
By then it's like, I was like, I'm gonna start pushing back. And so I started going into abstract.
Okay.
And I started finding that like the expressionism around abstract was it does something for me. Being able to take a brush and just swipe it across a canvas and don't care where it lands and how it, and it's like, I'm not an artist that's very meticulous. I don't like to take my time on things because I'm just like, I'm worried about the emotion and the energy that's behind it. That's why I feel. I want to be able to do what I feel, what is coming out of me.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy to take something maybe even spiritual or like just a feeling and change it into a physical energy. That's makes you feel good, man, thinking about that. Cool.
So it felt like, I was just, doing this, being meticulous and stuff. It was just, I always felt like it was just, I just wanted to take the pencil and just start scribbling
Yeah.
everything I created. I just wanted to scribble back over it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, no, it's just the energy around this just doesn't feel good, and I need to release that. And so I started doing more abstract stuff, and I was like, I was going to class, I was going to these painting classes, and my artwork just looks so different from everybody else.
Okay.
And everybody's kind of drawn to my work.
Okay.
It's like the way that you use colors is really amazing, and I just saw that I see things a lot different. And then these students were telling me, this is really awesome, the way that you see this, And then when I showed my dad, it was like, oh, that's just this, that, and the third. And I'm like, and so I think it started kind of creating kind of a pushback between. So my dad is like my biggest inspiration in art.
Okay.
So it's like, he was inspiring because I wanted to be good as him, but I wanted to be good in my own way.
Right.
And in my own way was not his way. And the way that he only really thought about art is realism was the only type of real art that was. You know what I mean? And then, and so I started bringing these abstracts, and I'm like starting to contort like these faces and stuff. I'm kind of getting into my Picasso mode, you know. I'm like, I don't want to do this no more. I want to distort this and make this like crazy looking, make it interesting, make people look twice. Wait, hey, pause right here. Tell them your Instagram handle. So if y'all want to pause this and look at his Instagram, I already follow it, so I know exactly what he's talking about. Share your handle real quick. It's my Instagram is Juba, Juba artist. So Juba artist.
Perfect. Yeah. So y'all stop, go look at it. You can see exactly what he's talking about. He just posted something like this morning or yesterday, the day before, and it fits exactly what he's talking about right now. So go look and then come right back and then tune back in. Sorry. Go ahead.
You gotta, and I started whenever I was doing these abstract paintings and stuff. I just felt after the end of it, I felt so satisfied. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, this is great. You
expressed yourself the way you wanted to.
And I think too, I started to learn that, I was tuning into the chaos that I was used to. But I was bringing it out in a different way.
Like, kind of channeling it.
Right. And making something more creative and interesting looking.
Jackie, you're a mountain of a man. I hope you know that. And I say that with my whole heart is that you just can overcome adversity and then use that adversity. So many people fall victim to some of the things that you did at a young age, or, the things that you saw, and then they return it to somebody else. And man, you've overcome so fucking much, and you use it in such a positive way. And just know that you're moving me in this conversation right now, man. So I had to cut you off right there because I appreciate you so much for this.
I think it's needed because one of the things I understood early on was that there is not a lot of kids that the message has always been that. We don't make it out of the system. You don't, and you don't see the examples. I didn't see an example. And I had told myself I had to be that example. So what you start doing, you start juggling these two worlds of like, what can I do with all of this trauma and adversity, and how can I make people look at it differently? Not in a sad way, but looking at its complexity, but yet looking at the resilient aspect of the complexity. Like how do we get from adversity to tuning in to make it something very resilient and communicating it that anybody that's gone through any type of hardships in life, there's still hope for you.
Yes, man.
That you can still be an inspiration. Yes. You can still inspire a generation. But a lot of that has to come through your own thinking. It starts here, And you can't tell me that, that there's not a person out there that's like, I want to be a drug dealer when they, they're 5 years old. And like, I want to be a criminal. I want to go and hurt people. Like, I want to do that for a living.
Right.
No, because typically anybody that's gone through any type of pain always wishes there was something on the other side of that. There's they always want it. But what happens is we end up embracing the hurt and pain a lot more than looking at the perspective of how can I come in and be an inspiration to somebody else? Because I always knew that there was going to be other people behind me in this system.
Yeah.
Any
And
type of
you
system.
were already talking about how you're taking into consideration your younger biological family. And then and saying, I need a change. Someone may
yeah.
be watching me, you
Yeah.
know. So
And that's where it started, because it was like, I have to be an example for them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want them to say, oh, this is my brother, he's in prison.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what
ain't
Jackie
nobody
did. I'm gonna do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to change that, you
Yeah.
know. And so it really kind of started to shift. And I used art in a way that I could really it can pour it out, you know, on canvas. And the more that I started seeing that people like the work, you know, I was pushing back on my dad more and more and more. You know, so like I say, it was a love-hate relationship. And then so as I'm going through school, I went to Tarrant County for almost 8 years
Okay.
for a 2-year degree.
Okay.
Which is crazy because I was taking all of the fun classes,
Right.
all the art classes and things like that. And I didn't want to take the math.
I don't blame you. Don't blame you. Not one fucking bit. I went to tech school, man, and I was drawn to this school because you could go get what's the smaller one? Associates.
Yeah,
You
associates,
could
yeah.
go and get an associates and whatever, but you could just take the core classes or the tech classes and end up with a 1-year
Yeah.
certification. So I was like, sign me up. I
Yeah.
don't want to do the math. I don't want to do the
I wanna
history.
do that.
Yeah. So I
So-
don't blame you, not one bit.
So it was crazy. And so I'm doing these classes. I'm loving this art stuff. I'm, you know, doing all these wonderful projects. And I'm seeing like, wow, I really do have a cool skill set. Like
Yeah.
the way that I see things can be really impactful in how other people may be able to see things. And so I ended up taking a child development course. And it was an elective I had to take. And I ended up meeting this teacher who was phenomenal.
Okay.
Wendy Dukas, if you
Okay.
listen to this.
Shout out, Wendy.
She was amazing. And I think she thought I was probably crazy first when I first approached her. But I was taking this child development course, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting class, because it was talking about the development of children, the brain, you know, behaviors and things like that. And I was like all in, because I was interested in my own journey and all the things that that was happening to me, that
Right.
had happened to me. And why did I turn out to be at this time, like, oh, I'm pretty positive. Like, I haven't done drugs. Like, I wasn't out on the streets. I wasn't doing all these different
Right.
things. And I was trying to figure out, like, you know, what may have happened that I did like this course correction, you know. So I bring her. So when I got adopted, my mom had all of these copies of my records, and which are huge 3 binders, like
Okay.
massive.
Okay.
Probably the biggest binders you can buy. And they're just full of documents of everything that's happened to me, you know, where I come from, medical, everything.
Okay.
My whole life has been documented.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Which is odd.
It's very
you know?
odd, yeah, because not a lot of people can have
Right.
that. You know, we have the memory, but everything is documented. My behaviors, things that I've done in school while I was suspended, you know, my birth records, like everything. When my mom, even before I came into this world, when she was pregnant with me, you know, different things like, I mean, it's everything. So she was supposed to give these documents back, and she never did. She was supposed to give these binders back. You know, she has 3. And she tells me, she says, hey, I'm cleaning out the closet. Do you want these binders? I said, yeah, but I didn't know what they were. And then, and so I never got them. And then I think a year later, she was cleaning out the closet. She said, Jackie, if you don't get these binders, then I'm going to throw them away.
Okay.
I want these.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, you know, they're my documents. So
Is this your biological mom or your adopted
my
mom?
adoptive mom.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And so she gives me the binders, and I will never forget, I sat up for 3 days without sleep,
Yeah.
looking at everything that happened to me. I didn't know this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
None of it. I didn't know why. I knew that my parents were alcoholics. I didn't know the story of what they were doing, everything. And I'm just a wreck. Like everything.
Yeah.
I mean, when the times that they were in court, the times when CPS was visiting, they was intoxicated, you know, they found them, arrested him, prostitution, all these just everything.
It's a lot to
It's a
take
lot.
in at any point in your
lot.
life. Yeah.
And stuff that I didn't know. You know, it's like it's almost like you're rediscovering where you come from.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, these are my parents. They didn't even make effort to come and get us. You know what I mean? Like, they wasn't showing up to court. They were failing all these different tests. They weren't going to counseling. They wasn't doing anything. And they lost their children. Like, you know, and it's like, whoa, like I'm just exposed to a whole nother world that I didn't know. It was very foreign.
Yeah.
And then plus all the things that happened to me that people were documenting. And so it's such an interesting world of experiencing it and then reading about it.
Yeah. Yeah. My God. Yeah.
You know, it's like very, very interesting.
Yeah. Because so many people like to theorize whenever or fantasize maybe that at the point in time when you die, so a lot of people wish that they could like sit in front of an old VCR and rewatch it.
Right.
And you almost had a similar experience right here on planet Earth.
Right.
Not a whole lot of people get.
Just flipping the pages.
And so then it's another experience where you didn't have a role model or another person to lean on that had similar experience as you. So you're uncharted waters again in your adult life now.
So I got these books. And then I said, I got to keep these books. There's just something special about these.
100%.
And I knew that after reading these, I had to share what was in this book. I had to. It was so important that somebody sees this.
Yeah.
So I end up taking these books to my child development teacher, and she thought I was probably crazy. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, I just want you to read some of this and help me understand what I was going through.
Yeah.
Like, what was going on in my brain?
Yeah.
Like, you know. And so she said, okay. She took it. It was like the weekend. She ended up taking them. And then like that Tuesday, I think I had her on Tuesday, Thursdays. She said, Jackie, I need to talk to you after class.
Man, okay.
And she was like, this is incredible. Like, how are you even here?
Yeah.
She was questioning me, like, how are you even here? Like, and I think she kind of recognized, like, the stuff that I experienced. Like, how did you even get here?
For sure. And she had a professional intake on it. Like, she wasn't just a random bystander like me that maybe can't process these things well. She was experienced and still questioning, like, how are you still on your own 2 feet?
Right. Like, how did you, like, and she was like, I want to help you. I need to know what you're doing.
Okay.
What do you want to do? Like, and I need it to help you. And she just really just latched onto me.
Cool.
And so she was like, you know, what do you want to do? And I was like, by that time, I was, you know, kind of in this place of, I really wanted to help kids that had been where I was. I already knew that I did. And I was like, well, maybe I should go into psychology. And I told her, I said, well, I want to go to psychology. And I want to do psychology, and I said the University of North Texas has a really good program in psychology, and I would love to go there. And I said, but I'm just been taking random classes, just art classes and stuff. And she's like, oh my gosh. So she gets me to this academic advisor, and he goes through my stuff, and he was like, you need to take these classes so you can graduate, you know, and you know, you in order for you to go to that university, you know, you need to take your basics. And I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing it, and she ended up paying for like my books. She ended up paying for a lot of stuff. And then, and what was even crazier is that up until this point, I had been paying for my education for myself, not realizing that my education is free.
Oh, because you were
I was in foster care.
Yeah, and you're in the state of Texas.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
oh man.
Yeah. So I'm just like, okay. So so we figure all that stuff out, you know, and I end up meeting another friend. And things just started playing together. Like, you know, my hardest classes, I ended up meeting my best friend. Okay. And we ended up taking, you know, this biology course together and stuff like that. And I ended up graduating. And thanks to her, just really, you know, handing me off, like, you know, and kind of holding my hand through this, and such encouragement. Of like, what do you need? I can provide it. And just a beautiful woman, just a really incredible woman.
For sure.
And I think it's like, you know, those things that we all need is just these people that come into your life that are just, they recognize what they can do. And I don't even think she could recognize that. I think she she just felt like she needed to do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but it played such a huge role in where I am today.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I don't think she realizes it.
Man.
She's just probably just so humble about it.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
it's like, oh, it's just, you know, but it's like, no, you really, that was a dark time because I wanted to give up on school because I had been in it for so long.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know? And so, so I graduate, and I transfer to the University of North Texas. And I'm still doing art, but I'm starting to discover it in a different way.
Okay.
And I'm starting to explore a little bit different ways to do it. I've always been obsessed with words because words has always been a part of my life. People have always had to make statements on my behalf and type up things, you know, using these notes that I had or whatever. And so I'm wanting to explore with these. I go to University of North Texas. My first semester, I failed every single class.
Damn. How many did you take?
I took 4, and I failed them all because at that time I was trying to help my parents.
Okay.
I got so caught up in their lifestyle and trying to help them, like I started.
Your biological parents.
Yeah, my biological parents. And then it just really took an emotional toll on me. But it was a learning point. See, there's things that I've learned in my life is whenever I hit rock bottom, I don't want to sit there.
Okay.
That's not a place for me to stay.
Yeah.
It's not a place for me to get comfortable. It's a place for me to really learn and figure out how do I come out swinging.
Yeah. And get the hell out of here.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people find that place just to sit, and they just that darkness will just overtake you. I've always learned when I'm there, I have to come up swinging. I have to figure out how to fight this because I can't do this.
Fuck yeah.
You know?
Fuck yeah.
And so
I love that.
I came out swinging. I told my parents, I said, look here, one thing I have not learned was boundaries. And I've got to have boundaries with you guys. And that is it. I have to worry about myself. You guys had your opportunity. You're not going to ruin this opportunity.
Right. Okay.
You know, and my education is important for me because it really might give me a chance in life.
Exactly.
You know, it may relieve some of the things that I've you know, have gone through. Like it might change the course and the perspective, you know, and shift. And so I did, and so I started doing the groundwork, and I end up meeting another teacher who read a story about that I wrote at the community college about why I didn't want to get adopted. I had to do it for an English class.
Okay.
But it was really powerful, and she ended up sharing it with the teacher, and that teacher was like, I need to meet you. And so we met, and she was like, hey, how about, you know, would you be interested in helping us develop a foster care program here?
Okay.
I was like, absolutely. You know,
Okay.
I've been dreaming of this.
Yeah,
Like, you know, just
yeah.
helping other kids that been where I've been. And basically, the school kind of denied us having a program, but they said that y'all can start an organization.
Okay.
So we started an organization called Persevere Until Success Happens.
Okay.
So it's called Push.
Push.
So it's at the University of North Texas. Anybody that's listening that goes out there, get connected with the Push program. It's
Heck
now
yeah.
a program. So it's evolved, you know,
Okay.
into a program now. So that helps support youth that have been in care.
Okay.
That is on campus.
Congrats, man. That's
so it's-
fucking awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then I did so much work there and so many community things, and it was almost like it was transformative for me because I was put in these leadership positions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have to learn how to excel in that, and
Yeah.
it pushes your mind in a different space. Like, whoa, like maybe I can be a great influence for somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, and so
And kind of getting to see the story on the other end of like maybe being an adult,
right.
Seeing and dealing with
Yeah.
children that
Yeah.
didn't get a leg up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like, you know, it kind of puts you in a place of like, you know, I had this experience, but this is what I can do to help those kids that I wanted to help when I was in care, you know?
Yeah.
And so here I am, I could be an example now, and I can definitely do something to help the next generation of young people coming.
Yeah, man.
So I started speaking.
Okay.
You know, and I found out that was a talent. You
could-
know,
yeah,
people's
it
like,
is.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
you're a great speaker. Why don't you come over here and speak over here? Speak over here and tell your story over here. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
And so I learned that was a talent of mine. And,
Yeah.
and in the background, I was still doing art, but I was trying to find my way
Okay.
in art. And I was at the time I was still very I was doing art, but I wasn't showing it
Okay.
because I was so self-conscious about it, and I was worried that people wouldn't understand it,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't appreciate it. And it was my story, and it took a lot of vulnerability.
Right.
'Cause I'm talking about some difficult things,
Right.
through this work, and so I just kind of kept it in my garage.
Okay.
And then and I had an art show. There was a show. It's called Dallas Raw, and I ended up showing some of my work there, and I got such a lot of feedback on some of the work that I had. Matter of fact, there was a teacher that came through. She was a counselor, and she was looking at one of my pieces, and she just started crying. And she said, I know exactly what this is. She's like, I deal with these kids all the time. And she's like, I've just never seen anything like this before in a visual perspective.
Yeah.
That's so powerful, telling your story. And she was just like, and it was really cool because it kind of validated
For sure.
what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that validation because I wasn't showing nobody.
Exactly. Exactly.
And my family knew, and they were all like very supportive of me, and encouraging, but it was always like, I don't know if I will be good enough, or I was still had my dad in the background of in my head, like this is not art kind of thing. So I ended up graduating at the University of North Texas, and I ended up
Congrats for that too,
appreciate
man.
it. Yeah, I got my bachelor's degree in social work.
Cool.
And then I ended up being the commencement speaker for my graduating class, which was really awesome.
Yeah.
And by that time, I was like, if I can do this, I can do anything.
Anything, man.
Anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, why stop here?
Exactly.
Let me just go ahead and get my master's too.
Okay.
And I ended up getting a job that was really good. I was working at MHMR. I was working with youth that were in foster care, that were transitioning out of care. So I did some work over there.
Okay.
And then I ended up getting this job that I currently have.
Okay.
As a CASA supervisor.
Yeah.
Advocating for kids in court. And so it all kind of came together. And so kind of got to a point, really, the artwork, I was still doing it. But I think during COVID, my dad ended up passing away.
Okay.
And I felt our relationship was always very strenuous. Like it was good, and then it was very strenuous at times because he was older. He was he's the 80s.
Okay.
And so I became like helping him, take care of him.
Okay.
Different things like that. But in his vulnerability during these ages, I felt like I got closer to him, and I started to understand him a lot better.
Okay.
A lot of people, I always talk about forgiveness. It's a huge thing.
Okay.
It's one of the most difficult things that I think that we have the most difficult thing trying to understand and to apply.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a lot. And per case by case, it's so different.
It is very different. And my wife is so funny because she always tells me, you're so good at forgiving, like you. And I tell her I have had to practice it my whole life. And so it does become easier after a while.
Yeah.
Because before I met my parents, I told God that I want to let go of this. Because I knew that I could not advance the way that I wanted to in life if I kept holding on. So I had to forgive them.
Okay.
So,
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to freaking save this clip right here, man.
yeah, man, you have to find it, the space to forgive and really focus on it. And the first time that you ever do it and you let go of the most painful things in your life, I think it becomes, a lot of people say like you forgive and you forget, but I think in that language, I think there's some discrepancies in it because I've had to forgive my parents multiple times.
Right.
It's not a one-time thing.
Right.
It's an ongoing thing. So I look at forgiveness as ongoing. And the more that you understand that, the easier it becomes to forgive people as they do you wrong, And so, and I had to forgive them multiple times because I know them as adults.
Yeah.
And they keep hurting me.
Yeah.
They keep doing the same things, and so I've had to keep forgiving them, and it becomes easier after a while.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to hold anything against anybody, because at the end of the day, we're human. But in his vulnerability, I learned so much about him and where he came from maybe why he was the way he was.
Yeah.
I learned about his ambitions, his hopes, and his dreams, some of the things that didn't come true for him.
Yeah.
And the only thing that he ever wanted to do was be an artist.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and the most passionate thing that he ever had was art.
Yeah.
And it was both of us, we both had that passion.
Yeah.
You know, we both loved it. We just loved it in different ways.
Yeah.
You know, and being able to express it differently. And I think after he passed away, I just needed to go in this self-discovery, and I really needed to tell the world about my story in a visual perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and we were talking about the conversations of mental health and addiction. All of those things were kind of coming to the forefront in the media, and people are having discussions about it. And I was like, well, not only can I talk about it, but I can paint about it.
Yeah.
And I got documents that support all these different things, and this needs to be in the forefront of people. And 9th Street Gallery just really gave me that avenue of being able to do that in a huge way.
Yeah.
You know, so
turn this towards you right there. Yeah.
And so, so I have all these documents, and I'm like, I'm gonna use them. I'm gonna cut out clips. I'm gonna blow them up. I'm gonna copy and paste. I'm gonna do all of these things and just showing my story in such a raw and a real way.
Yeah.
And it's not just my experience, but to any experience, because and which is crazy is because I have such a huge range of topics.
You've lived a lot of life, man, in a very short time period. Concentrated.
Yeah. And so being able to talk about all these different things is just really incredible. And it's like, you know, I'm interested, and I can't wait to see how my art continues to evolve.
Yeah.
How that conversation continues to evolve, and how it impacts people. You know, and so I mean, it's, you know, that's where I am now, is just, you know, being able to continue this journey of impact, and the I think winning second place at the Mementos Jurid Art Show just solidified that conversation is very much needed.
For sure, man. And then what I'm taking so much from you, and what's like weighing in on me so hard from all this, is that you have so many things and reasons and different experiences that you could use as anchors, so to say, and that could just lock you down and could have kept you at rock bottom. And man, instead of anchors, you used them as fucking engines, like rocket engines, and you didn't stay in those spots, and you didn't let them weigh you down, and then you used them to motivate yourself to get up. And then you started seeing your younger siblings, and then you started seeing younger people in general in public, and thinking, I'm not going to let this hold me back, and I'm going to use this to power myself and to power other people. And dude, it's just so fucking motivating. Like, it's so beautiful, and so many people fall victim to themselves and their environment and just get down on themselves and then let it stay down. And then you're like, fuck no, don't let this happen, you know?
Yeah, and it's hard. I'm not going to sit here and make it seem like it was easy.
Right, for sure.
It's hard to come up from a place of darkness.
You
know? But I think, like, you know, I think you have to hold on to that little bit of light that people have shown you. You know, and when people are, you know, when people show you that and say that this is what you have, like, you know, you're, like my advocate used to always say that your smile will bring so much joy to people. You have such a beautiful smile. You should keep smiling. You know, and from that moment, I would grin about everything.
Yeah, man. There you go.
Grinning. And then just the messages. You know, the crazy part about it is, like, you know, like the dark messages always sometimes overshadow those small ones, but those small ones always remain there, because you never forget what people say to you in times of darkness. You know what I mean? That they can be very inspirational. And I think if you just, you know, just cater to those little moments of light within yourself, it will become bigger and bigger and bigger, and grow and grow.
Yeah,
know?
man.
And so I don't say that, I don't have any bad days.
Right.
I've done a lot of great things
Right.
and have a lot of successes, and I love that. But one of the things that I've learned is that I can sit in my pain. I've learned to sit in it
Okay.
and be okay with it.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's the only way I can get up from it, because there's something that I need to learn in this pain that's going to make me a better person, and I can transfer that somewhere in my life. It can it can be an inspiration to something somewhere.
Yeah.
And I just have to find how to channel that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so so I've learned, and people like, wow, you like, I know I sit in it. Like if I'm hurting and I'm sad, I will sit in that
Yeah.
and figure out why. And what can I do?
Yeah.
I always ask myself, what can I do to bring inspiration to somebody else
Yeah.
that may be going through the same thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Because life is not always about me.
Yeah.
You know, we're here to be a vessel and we're to be a light. And so how can I channel that? And a lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
That's where your power is. If you can find a way to take that adversity that you experience and channel it into a power to help people around you in your community, young person, having those courageous conversations.
Yeah, man.
The world would be a lot better.
Yeah,
for
for
all of
sure,
us,
for sure. And then I'm curious, man. It seems to be kind of a built-in tool that you maybe were born with, or maybe you did learn this, but being able to process horrible fucking things, some of the worst things that any human can go through, and not us as humans. We have this this trigger to where whenever you get in that fight or flight mode, our brains will put a wall and black those things out. And then people have learned through I've learned not firsthand but secondhand through image therapy, and then being able to walk back through those things in a comfortable scenario. And then one that I'm really taken to, I haven't got to do it myself. I haven't found the reason for it yet, but people are starting to legally be able to use psychedelics for therapy again. And they're not just going and getting just blazed out of their mind and then, whatever. They're in a controlled environment to where these psychedelics in low controlled doses are able to let them reopen those folders that got blocked off and then process them in a comfortable and confident way. And I watched this great documentary. It's called How to Change Your Mind. And I learned all these things from these professionals. They're not just stoner hippies. They are professionals, and they explained how they're able to break down these barriers and then let their patients go back and process these things. And I mean, did you have any certain tools, or were these just like learned their talents and skills? Did you learn these yourselves, or did you have any outer influence to help you break through these boundaries and use them as tools rather than anchors?
Yeah. So I think one of the things is, so I've always been curious about other people's trauma.
Okay.
Right? Because nothing's new under the sun.
Right.
So my experiences are not new.
Right.
And I kind of I have mentors, and some are alive and some are dead.
Okay.
And I think of Frederick Douglass.
Okay. Wait, why do I know that name? Why is he famous?
Well, because he was a slave.
Okay.
And then he became an orator.
Okay.
And helping with abolishing slavery and fought against slavery.
Okay.
And so he became this big orator and had these speeches and did some really incredible work.
Okay.
But he was also a slave himself. And it's kind of interesting, you can be a slave and you can get used to your conditions and stay within that place, or you can get up and use that bondage that you once had to free other people. And I love that idea. And I think Frederick Douglass, his book was like the first book I really just read, his autobiography. And I think that really just kind of took root in a lot of places. Like, I don't have to stay here, and just using that as a tool within itself and just kind of recognizing that
Oh man.
I don't have to stay here
Okay.
is, you know, it puts a different perspective on
For sure.
life.
For sure.
You know,
that you're
I
not
don't
stuck.
right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people find themselves, you know, thinking that they're stuck, but they can overcome these things, you know. And then the thing is, like, you know, science has evolved, philosophy has evolved, like all these different things have evolved. And so there's a lot more resources now.
Yeah, and our access to information, just
Exactly.
these powerhouse phones in our pocket
Right.
that I could Google Douglas's book right now
Right.
and read what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. And so everything has evolved. So the resources are there. It's just about us being courageous enough to reach out and utilize those resources. And so
awesome.
one of the things I always do is I usually try to have mentors in different places and spaces.
Cool.
Like if I see somebody that does something better than me,
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to ask you, like, yo, can you mentor me in this?
Yeah,
Like,
cool.
Like, you know, and so because I have something to learn from everybody.
Yeah.
Life is about learning and passing on that knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think those become tools after a while when you see the benefits of it. You know? And like networking.
Yeah,
is
for
truly-
sure. We
I learned that in
always-
college. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, networking is pretty cool.
For
Like, I need
sure.
to talk to everybody in the room.
Exactly. Exactly.
see
At
what
least know
everybody
their
knows.
name. Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
So I think there's a level of resiliency in all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, resiliency is kind of interesting because it's, you know, this ability to bounce back from difficult or adverse situations, right? And I don't think there's still this kind of discovery in that. Like what helps with that? What are some of the factors that play into that resiliency? Because I think we all have it, you know. And one of the things I think that plays into it is how other people respond to the trauma that we're in. You can either do it in a positive perspective, like a lot of people did, but even those small voices and those small interactions with these positive people does something tremendous within your capacity to be resilient.
Yeah.
And I think that we need that more in our communities. We need that more in these young children that are going through things, you know. And I think a lot of that really kind of played into building up this this ability to be resilient and bounce back from these situations.
Yeah, man.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's so powerful, man. And I like your take on mentors as well. And I have a cool story on this because I worked for my dad. My dad had a pretty successful trash company at one point. And then this random dude just put in a resume. He was retired and he was bored. He had a CDL and he applied for one place and then they didn't message him back. So he applied with my dad. And then I was thinking, who is this guy? Like, why would he want to work at a trash company when he's retired from the school district? But whatever. Well, man, me and this man named Gilbert, we hit it off. And he's 65 or 67 at the point, and I'm like 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And then I'm just riding in the trash truck with him, and he basically takes me under the wing like a grandpa figure. And then, honestly, no shade on my dad, but Dad was building this company. He had quit like very dramatically in this other previous job that he had. A lot of motion was going on in my dad's life, so he wasn't so much in tune with us. And then, man, this man named Gilbert came along and was just like the man I needed at the moment. And then, you know, worked with me, talked to me like a man. And I don't think I was used to that at that point. So he like elevated my spirit to be like, I am growing into be a man right now. And then, well, I leave to go to tech school and then come back. I'm still kind of in contact with Gilbert, yada, yada. And then, well, years pass, and then my dad calls me, hey, Gilbert passed away. And so I'm just fucking devastated, you know, go to the funeral. I'm crying worse than his family is, you know, the same old. And then, so I hold Gilbert dearly in my heart, and I always think of things that we talk about. You reminded me of this story because your person mentioned your smile,
Yeah.
and Gilbert had just this like permanent smile that just gonna stick in my head. But he also smoked cigarettes like crazy, and he always had a cig hanging out. And so I just remember him. Well, then so years and years pass, and my dad needs another office. And he called me and was like, "You won't believe who my office manager is." And it turns out to be Gilbert's son. Wow. Well, then I'm like, that's cool. And then more years pass by, and I need an office. And then sure enough, Cody, Gilbert's son, is now my property manager.
Wow.
And we're not connected like me and Gilbert were, but when I see him, I'm just so reminded, and I get so much positivity from just knowing that my mentor, my, man that I looked up to, I still got a piece of him.
Yeah.
And then there's still wisdom, and there's still like that connection, not the exact same, but I can still experience him through his son. And I'm like, that it's so important whenever you see the opportunity to maybe mentor, or just like kind of how Derek was explaining y'all's relationship, just you're helping him out, giving him some tips, encouragement, all these things. And whenever you realize you can be something like that for someone else, I encourage everyone to just take full advantage of it in a responsible way. Please don't ever take advantage of anyone. But it feels so good to be in a position of needing mentors. And then I have similar experience when I ran my other company. Someone took me under his wing, and then I was like, "Why are you being so nice to me, man?" Because we're competition. And he said, "If people weren't nice to me, I wouldn't be where I'm at now."
Yeah.
And then I took that and ran with it. I started this podcast off of that fucking thought right there. Yeah. And people would call me later on in life and was like, "Hey, I just started my skid steer business. I need some tips of how to bid this." And then you've done the same in so many ranges of your life. And it's just so, I love to hear people of where they started and then who helped them. And you have so many experiences with that with different people. And then getting to help others, the younger generation, or someone your exact same age or older. Yeah. It's so crazy how you can fit into other people's lives. And just being that positivity that someone told you, "Hey man, smile more. I love your smile." And then you may see somebody, I like smiling at people that, maybe look at you funny because they may be going through a shit day. Yeah. And if you just, "Hey man, how's it going?" They may be like, "Thank God that dude wasn't a dick like everybody else today." So it's so important to just, you don't have to connect with everybody, but just a little bit of positivity. Yeah. And you never know how far it can go.
That's kind of like, the power of people.
Yeah.
Like, we really have a lot more power than what we think we do.
100%.
It's kind of going back to your point to the impact that people can make. So I tell you this story, it's really cool, kind of talking about that. So when my CASA volunteer, she passed away a couple years ago, I was able to honor her at a Texas CASA conference, which is a huge conference that they have, where all the states come together, or Texas, programs, CASA programs come together and learn, and just training and different things like that. And I was able to honor her there.
Yeah.
So we had reunited. Okay, so so I take you back a little bit. So in my college, at the end of my college in 2015, we reunited because I had been looking for her, as well as other influential people in my life that made a difference. You want to garner them,
for sure,
and you want to tell them thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
And here's someone who was a huge monument in my life, and I was wondering, if she's still around. I would love to just tell her thank you as a grown person. Yeah. And
that got through all those things that she helped you through.
She got through, yeah. Like, she planted a seed, like, and that seed just kept on growing. And then other people watered that seed, kept watering it. And so I ended up finding her son on social media, and I contacted him, and his daughter reached out to me, and it just became a big thing. And my mom was like, "You've got to have this on the news. Like, people have got to see this." Yeah. So Channel 8 went and covered it, the reunion of us. And, all these years, 20 years later, I'm staring at the person that was my idol, the person that loved me first, that I fell in love with,
Yeah.
The person that I wanted to adopt me, that I trusted, and that was my confidant. And we was able to reunite. But what's really crazy is, and this is the power of people and the power of influence, is that after giving her that, having that speech and honoring her there in person and talking about my story and how she played this huge role, after that, after she had passed, her grandson wanted to be a CASA volunteer to do the same thing. So he is actually one of my advocates on one of my cases, helping kids.
Man.
So it's like, the influence, so we can continue this on a road of not brokenness, but on a path of healing.
Yes.
We just have to find ourselves in those places and spaces. And I think a lot of stuff that I was able to do is sometimes you got to push yourself and put yourself in an environment where it's going to keep you in a positive state.
Yes.
And
surround yourself by the right people. Yeah.
Right. And so if whatever it is that you're going through, get around people that are positive, that is going to speak life into you, one, but also get around where you can make a difference in people, because that keeps you from being so much absorbed in your own issues and problems, allows you to give to others. And that in fact is actually healing you a lot too.
For sure.
Because you're doing some self-discovery as well. I'm like, wow, I'm helping this kid, but he's also helping me. And so it's not me just helping other kids, but they're teaching me a lot about myself as well.
Yeah, dude.
And so it and it's really cool whenever you have this full circle kind of come around, and it's like I basically had this full circle with her, just her advocating for me, seeing me through, and then now I'm seeing, she saw me through, and now I'm in the position of power and giving and doing what she used to do, and then now her grandson is there too, and it just keeps going around in this place of healing. And
yes, for sure,
it's really
I love it. I absolutely love it. And then that's what we all need to be shooting for is, that's exactly how we heal this broken system that we have, not just with the foster care system, but just person to person, and just remembering, Juba was so nice to me that day, and then I can share that with somebody else, and then somebody else. And then you said that she planted a seed, and it made me just think that it didn't just turn into a beautiful one plant. You've turned it into a fucking garden, man.
Well, I never thought about that.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
because you've planted and helped with other people. It's not just one beautiful plant in one pot.
Wow.
You're in a whole field in a garden, and helping others. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, dude.
And you look at it in that perspective.
Yes,
that's pretty cool.
And
man.
she, planted that seed, and she tended to it and watered it and made sure you're gonna see through. And look at you, man. So many different things. And well, I wanted to also ask, this kind of changing gears a little bit, but when you were at 9th Street and then you got the full gallery and got to really express yourself, was it the first time that you got to show your mom what you were doing?
Oh, man.
And was it your biological mom or your adopted mom?
So this is actually interesting.
Okay, what did that mean to you, man?
Yeah, so I did this exhibition for anybody that's listening. 9th Street Gallery gave me the full gallery just to do whatever I wanted to do. They were incredible. And I had always thought like, hey, I want to do this, and I'm going to do it in a very impactful way. And anything that I usually do, like in regards to this especially, is to tell the truth, but also bring the perspective of hope on the other side. I never want to down anybody with just a whole bunch of just, oh my God, that's a sad story. But no, I want them to see both aspects of it.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous, man. I was nervous because there was some things that I thought that my adoptive mother would learn and find out. And I was really nervous about my mom seeing it, my biological mom, because I didn't want to bring up hurt or guilt, in that perspective. And so I was wrestling with a lot in doing this show. And so, so my mom ended up coming to the show. My biological mom my adoptive mom was just super supportive. Like, you know,
Cool.
she knows and she can talk to me about anything and just loves me like just my family. My whole adoptive family pretty much was there.
Nice.
Like
Heck
everybody
yeah.
came.
Heck yeah.
It was really amazing. But when my mom got there, when I went to show her, I did it on a private level, you know, more intimate, and she loved it. She thought it was really great, and she was really proud of me. I think for her, it may have been difficult too to be able to go back and see the realities of, you know, some of the things that happened and occurred to her, you know, and the outcome. But I had to continue to remind her, we're not in that space anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
This is a place of healing.
Yes.
And your story and my story is going to help somebody else.
Yes.
So this is just not about me, but it's about us. And you're recovering. You're doing great. You're doing good. You're in a lot better place than you was years ago. You still have your struggles, and that's fine. You know, but you're not out on these streets and doing this X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So people need to see this. You know, this is what people need to see. And one of the things I really wanted people to do wasn't me just sharing my story, but I wanted them to also recognize their own traumas in their own life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to, you know, you might need to deal with that.
Yeah.
A lot of us walk around hurting other people because we haven't really acknowledged the hurt that other people have caused
Right.
us.
You're operating on just like this traumatic system, and I don't mean it in a mean way, but boomers carry around so much unprocessed weight.
Right.
And then not everybody, but a lot of people don't realize that that's the foundation of their life, their moral code that we were kind of talking about, and it affects you. And if you don't bring it to light, or if you don't talk about it or process it, you may not realize how bad it affects you. Your biological parents may not have ever known that, oh my God, the stuff that happened to me in my past life was pushed onto my kids just through my own actions, you know? And then so I am glad that us and our generations are being like, no, if there's something out there, get it out there.
Yeah.
Talk about it. You know, express yourself and feel these feelings so you know how to use those feelings. So
and I think it worked. I mean, I got so many different reactions. You know, I've seen a lot of people in tears. You know, and I think, you know, like I said, I think the show just really kind of brings us back to humanity, our humanity. You know, that people go through things. You know, people struggle with different things. And I'm just bringing to conscious of like my own experiences, hoping that somebody can relate. But even if they've never been through anything, they can still say, you know what, this happens to kids. This happens to people. Addiction is a real thing. Mental health is a real thing. You know, trauma is a real thing.
Yeah.
How do I insert myself in the conversation where I can be helpful? You know, rather than judging people or, you know, or having these misconceptions about certain things.
and sweeping things under the rug as well.
Right. And so this exhibition was about awareness, you know, and bringing awareness to the forefront. And I think I executed it pretty well.
I think
like,
so,
I think
man.
it was a lot. I was nervous, man. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know. And, you know, I was really scared. But I mean, at the end of the night, it solidified again, like, you know, through the interactions I had with people and just like, wow, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And this was really impactful. And,
Yeah, for
and
sure,
seeing
man.
people's reactions and stuff like that.
And I'm kind of glad that it took so long in your life to get a position like 9th Street gave you, because think about all the experience you got in public speaking, in helping others,
Right.
and then knowing what your target was.
Right.
If you were a younger man and then just like maybe on the beginning stages of your path to not fixing yourself, but, you know, just healing. And then you may have not been able to express yourself in the correct way.
Right.
And dude, you were so well execute it
Yeah.
in your just the way you showed it, man.
That's a great observation because you're exactly right.
Yeah.
I don't think if this happened 10 years ago, I would have been in the same space that I was now.
Right.
You know, and not being able to navigate all of the things I've gone through and be able to express it the way that I
Yeah,
did. So
man.
I mean, that's an incredible
Yeah.
perspective. I mean, I do think that you have to be in a place of confidence, you know, where you can be really vulnerable
Yeah,
with people.
yeah.
Because like I told you, I am like an open window, like
Right.
a door. Like, you know, you ask me anything, I can really kind of talk about, you know, any of the trauma. It doesn't affect me in a negative perspective. It might be hurtful to talk about it. It might be
Right.
sad.
Right.
But I've navigated it. I've sat in it. So I know, you know, it's not going to be something that's going to, you know, trigger me to do something,
Right.
you know, stupid or,
Right.
you know, but I've sat with it and I've dealt with it. So I know how to navigate it. And so like I'm in a place of healing,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the really awesome thing about it is I'm still learning, you know, like when my mom came and saw the show, like, you know, there was some conversations that we had to help me understand a little bit more about certain periods and times.
Okay.
And she is like, well, I don't think that happened like that, or this is where I was. I don't remember this, and like, you know, and she'll ask me questions, you know, and she'll be apologizing and stuff, and I'm like, you don't have to apologize anymore.
Okay.
Like, you know, and I don't want her to go back to that place of sadness.
Right,
you know?
right.
But over the years, I've always tried to help her deal with it. Like, people don't want to face it,
Right.
because it's too difficult.
Right. It's fucking hard to realize
Yeah.
that you've done bad things.
Yeah, and it's not. And I think a lot of people kind of associate the behavior with who they are, and it's like those are two different things. You know, the results of the behavior is the results of what has happened to you. And my mom has gone through so many things. You know, she comes from a long line of alcoholics. You know, this is not just something that just happened to her. It's something that's happened to a lot of her family members. You know, a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
and that goes unchecked.
Yeah.
And these are the consequences of it, is when we don't acknowledge them, then they show up. I always tell people this: if you don't acknowledge the trauma that you're dealing with, it's going to show up in two places by force. It's going to show up in your marriage, in the relationships that you're with, and it's going to show up when you have children.
Okay.
So it's going to show up in your marriage and your relationship, because that is going to be the closest person to you, right? So they're going to learn everything about you. And then with your children, you're just going to repeat that trauma to them if you don't realize that these were some of the things that had a negative effect on you. You end up repeating it. That's
Right.
that's why they call it a cycle.
Right.
You know, and so to get out of that cycle, you have to acknowledge, like, my childhood wasn't the best, and I need to kind of look at some of the things that was very painful for me, whether it was divorce or whether it was abuse or whatever the issue or the situation is. Acknowledging it and then learning to heal from it. What do I need to get out of this so that I won't repeat it?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah.
You know, the more that you hide away from it, it's going to show up by
Yeah.
force
Yeah.
in those two places, guaranteed.
That's so important. And then I think something important that I've learned in the past couple months or maybe even weeks is that there is a scale to trauma, but trauma is trauma, and it's okay to accept that. Say maybe, let's just make up a scenario. A kid grew up in a town like Wichita Falls, very middle class, and then didn't, maybe go through the system or anything, but still had trauma in his or her own experience that maybe they weren't beat up, maybe they weren't sexual abuse, but then
Right.
still faced their way of trauma, their experience of trauma.
Right.
And it's okay to realize that, okay, not everything was perfect,
Right.
and it's okay to bring up these things or bring to light of these things that made you hurt or uncomfortable or affected you in a way that wasn't positive, and not all trauma is the exact same, but it's okay to acknowledge things that you were like, it's just growing up in a normal town, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, it is bullying and everything. And kids being mean is normal, but it's okay to bring that up and realize that it's not
still
supposed to be.
hurtful.
Yeah, and it is still hurtful, and it's okay to be like, I need to process this differently
Yeah,
than maybe my peers or my parents or siblings or
Yeah.
whatever. And I think it's just a lot of realizing it's okay to bring up stuff. It's okay to that you weren't uncomfortable in those things, and there's lessons to learn from, whether it be this big or a mountain of problems. So
Yeah.
I think that's what we're all, maybe not all, but a lot of us in these newer generations are learning, like, it's okay to be vulnerable.
It is okay.
It's okay to process things.
And it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
It's okay to be
ruffle
not
some
okay.
feathers, and if you think of like, well, I don't want to bring it up because it could hurt somebody, or I don't want to act this way because it would make someone else uncomfortable. But
You're
then,
right.
you know, certain people didn't care if you were uncomfortable or if it hurt you. And then if you need to bring up certain things to process and not get over or not forgive, but just to handle it in your own way and process it in your own way, it's okay to
Yeah.
bring those things up. And it's something that you're going to have to do, at maybe even just on a personal level, but you could bring it to the public. And I just want to encourage a lot of people to,
Yeah.
like you said, it's okay to not be okay.
It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be sad. I think
Yeah.
we sometimes try to get away from the quote unquote bad feelings.
Yeah.
But I mean,
And mask them with alcohol
Right.
or drugs or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. and so, yeah, you know, you have to be okay with not being okay. And I think, you know, I kind of tell my mom that, and, you know, you're going to have your good days and your bad days.
Right.
But you got she has a lot of healing to do, because I think she's discovering for the first time how to talk about the things. And she comes from a different generation.
Right. Of shut up and
Oh,
get over
yeah.
it.
Like, I mean, sweep it under the rug. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
some of the stories, like, you know, I was just talking to my aunt the other day, and I mean, like, she was telling me stories about, you know, my grandparents and stuff like that. And I was like, I mean, you know, I have a piece that's called Ethanol and the Parasite. And it kind of talks about, you know, at the time of my birth, my mother's alcohol levels were through the roof. They were almost fatal, you know, and just, I called it the ethanol and the parasite because alcoholism is a long line that goes really far back, and it's been a parasite amongst other things in our family. Like, it's just been, it is corroded all kinds of spaces in my family, and it's just done so much damage. But it's really, really awesome to be able to help navigate my mom through some of these stories and say, okay, you really need to talk about this. Like, you need to really talk to somebody about this.
Yeah.
Like, these things happen to you and they're real. And for so long, you've been told, like, you know, don't worry about it. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know? And so you're never learning how to heal.
Yeah.
You're never learning how to you're always learning how to run from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And so I think
And bear that weight
Yeah.
for no good reason.
Yeah.
When someone's willing to come and say, Juba, give me that, I'm willing to
Yeah.
help you, man.
Right.
Or your mother or whoever.
right. You know? And so so she's got to learn how to carry it differently. And I think that's, you know, that's the thing with me. I think I've learned how to carry it differently. I've learned how to kind of turn it on its head, you know,
Yeah.
and give another perspective.
Yeah.
And,
Just got good tools. You're learning new tools, new
Yeah.
age tools, new education, and then and being willing to have an attack plan on it and not letting it weigh you
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And then I heard an interesting story of the DA was saying when they go and go through, they have a whole room full of potential jurors, and then they'll have a like a sexual abuse case. And then they have to ask, like, and it's very uncomfortable, but they can't have a biased, you know, jury.
Right.
And then he was saying that there's been several occasions of where women in their 60s or 70s get asked these questions, and it finally gets brought up of they were, you know, victims of sexual abuse or physical abuse, whatever it is. And it's never been brought up or processed until someone like a DA or another attorney has to ask them if they're going to be biased against a child abuser. And then they finally get resources to help, and they're like, it's a hard place to be in. It's a hard question to ask adults, especially if they're not, you are ready and you have tools at your fingertips to handle certain questions and scenarios where someone could still have a victim mindset. And I don't say that to put someone down, but just have a vulnerable mindset of not having the right tools. And then it's crazy what our past generations had to go through, man, with almost nothing, with no Google to be like, is this normal,
Right.
And so it's just wild, man. But I thought it was funny before we got on air. I asked you if you're a full-time self-employed artist, and you're like, no. And now hearing more and more of your story, I kind of don't want you to be, because you play such an important part. And I know 100% fact that your art is very hand in hand with your professional 9-to-5 gig. And they play very similar roles, but man, I just appreciate you so much for what you do. And I don't even know anybody that you've ever helped. These are all new names. You're a new person to me, you know, and but you play such an important role, and your story's so important. And then the fact that you have a conqueror mindset rather than a victim mindset of like, this happened to me, the world's always going to be against me. And you're like, no. The world was against me, and I had a lot of shitty cards, but now I have the resources to throw those cards away, get a new hand, and then teach other people how to deal with the new hand. And I just love that, man. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
And then you're so fucking good at art at the same time. You're not just a good storyteller and person builder. You're a damn good artist at the same time, man.
I try.
Yeah,
I think
you're being humble. You're being humble,
there's a lot
man.
More, artists that are more talented than I am.
Yeah.
I just found my niche.
Right.
And I just kind of stick with it. And sometimes that's difficult because like you look at other people's stuff and you're like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, that's really good.
Right.
So I'm learning. It's kind of funny because as much as I pushed back on my dad and realism, I'm starting to find myself wanting to go and conquer that skill set.
Okay, cool.
So and I don't know, what that urge is about, but I know if I go back and try to do some more realism and things like that, it'll just put me in another category and another tool under my belt on how to express myself.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but I just try to stick to what I know and what I have and learning to be confident in that. And that's an ongoing thing, because I'm very, very self-conscious. About my
as
work,
we all are.
But it's good whenever people validate that you have something.
For sure.
It really does.
And then, guys, if you're watching this and you see somebody that you admire and you're too nervous to, maybe that you think that they don't want to hear from you or whatever it is, just say good job, man, or just give them a thumbs up on Facebook and Instagram because it goes so far.
It goes far.
And man, I wanted to ask you, like, I follow you on Instagram. I see so many different pieces you put out. There has to be art that's not intertwined with past trauma. I mean, what are some other outlets that you push into your art? Maybe like the positive things or like fun things, or do you get ever hired for commissions that are different? Like, walk us through the lighter side of Jackie.
So I do. I have like a lot of my work is so I'm always kind of looking for that hope perspective in my work, and so a lot of stuff sometimes I push out is it's just positive messaging.
Okay.
And just positive messaging to self, and then I do some of the abstract art that I have. Like I have like some of these abstract, like huge ones that are just filled with a lot of hope and a lot of positive words and positivity. So a lot of that, I love using words and affirmations and things like that in my work to kind of just put out a positive message rather than. So I don't always talk about my story, but sometimes it's kind of interesting because like sometimes whenever I'm working on like a piece, there might be like a thought or a memory that comes up that is a positive, and I end up implementing that on the canvas. I've tried to make it a tradition that before starting any piece, I will paint or write something positive on the canvas before because I feel like that's an energy that's transferable.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I want to start the canvas with a good energy.
Okay.
You know, before I start painting. So
Yeah.
I might say something, you know, very positive, and I'll put it on there, and then I'll start my painting.
Okay.
You
You
know what I
paint
mean?
over it, or do you write it
Yeah.
on the backside?
I paint over it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool,
it's
man.
like it's embedded.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a
For sure. It's
know,
like
like
when
a
the
ritual for me.
kids put their hands in the concrete,
Right.
it stays.
Right,
And it's
right.
there, and like maybe, you know, some furniture gets moved over that, whatever, or like
Yeah.
it gets, you know, kind of blurred out, but you know it's still there.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
You know what's
that-
funny is because so they recently did a couple art pieces. They X-ray them to see how the artist kind of started these pieces.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they're kind of looking at how, you know, what they start with. Did they change anything, you know? And so they do these X-rays. And so I can't remember what the artist's name is, but they basically, when they did an X-ray, the picture that was under was totally different from what the picture that they did. Like, it was
Interesting.
very different. Like,
Okay.
so they painted over it.
Okay.
So I'm thinking maybe one day if I'm famous or something,
Yeah.
they can X-ray and see all of those
For
wonderful.
sure, man. That'd be
Positive
so cool.
messages, yeah.
You know, say 100 years from now, and you have your own museum in
Right.
Denton or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're gonna go back and be like, "Holy shit, he's
Yeah.
been pushing this message forever," and it was the concrete foundation, you know. And I just kind of thought. You talked about earlier, you know, building the foundation, and I said something about sand, and you know, it's loose and it doesn't work. And then now look at your foundation and what you're putting in, and it's solid, and it's positivity, and it's happiness, and that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. I just love your message so much.
Appreciate it, man.
I knew that you had to come on here. I just, not to be weird, but you kind of feel a sense of like, well, I saw you at 9th Street, and I was like, this guy is big time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he'll come down to my level. And then
No,
I'm
man.
so glad you're so humble, and you're such a
Yeah.
down-to-earth person, and you have so much good and positivity to get out there. And I'm glad that you felt the need to want to come on here after my invite,
sure.
man. So
I appreciate you having me,
Yeah,
man.
for sure, for
any
sure.
opportunity that I get to spread a good message and to talk about my story,
yeah,
I think it's great. I think, you know, people need to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, it's my ministry at the end of the day. And so so any platform that I'm able to just to talk about something positive and be helpful and continue the good work that you're trying to do.
Yeah,
you know,
man,
and
for
build on
sure.
top of that, you
For
know.
sure, man.
And spread that love, you know, and healing in our communities and neighborhoods. That, you know, it's that's what I'm all about. I'm like I love this artist. His name is Jack Whitten. He was an abstractionist too, and he says he don't necessarily need to be famous. He just want to be one of the boys.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
and I feel
yeah.
that same way. I
Yeah.
just want to be one of the boys. Someone to just acknowledge the work and say, you know, I love that. You know, I can relate to it. That's something positive. This is what the world needs. This is you know, I can talk about this artist and I understand his story and I love it. You know, and he's doing great things. You know what I mean? And,
for sure.
And I'm just trying to spread that love and positivity.
Yeah, man. And I think you are. And I hope that so many more opportunities open up. You've had such great success with like mentors and teachers putting you in the right positions to spread, you know, and then now your career, you're doing it, you know, and so, and making a garden like we talked about.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy. I'm going to have to take that from you. I'm going to be like, man.
For sure, man. And I love
I'll have
it
to quote you on
because
that, man.
I mean, that
awesome.
should be our goal, you know?
Yeah.
And I think of it, are you familiar with the flower, an iris?
Yeah.
And then, you know, you can plant one little bitty bulb and then leave it for years and years. You don't have to do nothing with them almost.
Yeah.
And then they just create more. They're called, I think, rhizomes. And then they just make their own and then make another little baby. And then when you pull the whole thing out, if they're old enough, they can be a huge wad of just bulbs. And then you can split those apart, put that in that flower bed, put that in that flower bed. And then that's just what you're doing, man.
That's
and
it.
then
That's all I
it's
wanna
that
be.
simple.
I want to be a seed like someone was a seed for me.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what, like my friend Jake, I've talked about him a trillion times now, y'all. And just, he's like, I wouldn't be where I am today if people didn't take me under their wing.
Yeah, I don't believe in the notion of self-made.
Yeah, yeah.
I hate when people say that.
Yeah,
It's
think
a
about
very
how
selfish
much.
mentality.
Yeah.
Because someone helped you on that journey. You cannot discredit yourself
Exactly.
to say that you were self-made. You've gone in this direction and have built something, but someone is giving you an opportunity. Someone has mentored you. Someone is giving you that click that says, hey, you should do this.
Yeah.
There's something, you can't, no one is ever self-made.
Exactly.
You're a byproduct of other people.
Exactly.
We are all
Your
a byproduct of other people.
environment or your teachers or whatever it is. So I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Well, man, did we skip anything that we need to get out? Did we cover it? Like, is there anything that you want to get off your chest?
No, I think I think we covered it all. I just one of the things I struggle with, and I'm just want to encourage all of the artists here in Wichita Falls is really embrace the art community.
Yes.
I feel like I've gotten the art community here in Wichita Falls a lot better than in Dallas.
Okay, cool, man.
And maybe because it's smaller here,
Yeah,
and
maybe
it's
a
a little
little
easier to
concentrated.
navigate.
Yeah, yeah.
But in Dallas, I'm working on trying to find an art community there.
Cool.
And so I've been able to meet several artists here, and it's been such a pleasure, to meet different artists here and stuff. So, but other than that, man, I mean, I think I'm still making way.
Yeah.
And I got a couple of opportunities coming up. And
Cool.
So I'm gonna just continue to do the work.
For sure, man. And I just thought about something. Tell us your involvement with 9th Street, because one, you're only in town for a show this weekend, and then tell us about your first part of it. Well, did we talk about that on air? When was it last year when you turned in pieces for the Memento show?
Oh no.
Or is that all this year?
No, that was last year. So the first Memento show, things that remind us. I submitted work, 3 pieces, and 2 of them got accepted, and then 1 ended up winning second place.
Yeah.
And then I was asked to come and do the exhibition, the solo exhibition, to further that conversation of the piece that won. And the one that won was called Adverse Circuitry.
Okay.
So they just really kind of talked about the trauma and how it distorts the brain chemistry and different things like that. And so it was really cool. And then we did the exhibition. That was really successful. And I was like, wow, this is crazy, and then they asked me to come back to be a juror for Memento, so that'll be happening today, later on today. So I'm one of the jurors for. That's a tough position
for sure, man.
For sure, that's not easy at all. But it's such an honor to keep coming back and leaving the footprints here, and amongst this community.
I agree, man. I love it. I love to hear, like, I think I already kind of touched it. This is where I started, and then this is where I'm at, and then now I'm helping people that was in the position where I started at. I love to hear the, you're not, like you said, you're not staying in the same spot, and you continuously grow, and then now your positions to be involved are getting better and broader, and then more involved. So, or at least like. You were a competitor last year. Now you're a juror this year. It's so cool to see.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been an incredible.
I'm glad that you can say that it's been a fun ride.
Yeah.
Because man, you really had not a good ride to begin with. And so, and you really turned it on its head, like you said.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, you want to say anything before we leave? And make sure you told us your Instagram. Is there any other ways that people can follow you on TikTok or Facebook?
Yeah,
or
so
anything?
I have a TikTok. It's a Juba Artist.
Okay.
I'm starting a new TikTok where it's called Unbox Your Trauma.
Okay.
So I really want to kind of dive in and have interviews and create content and awareness about adversity and trauma and how to navigate that.
Cool.
So just kind of on that playing field of just educating the community. And then I'm on Facebook, Juba Artist. That's my Facebook page. And that's really it.
Okay, man. Cool.
I love
And
to
then
have the follows.
one last question: where did the name Juba come from?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Glad you asked that.
Yeah, I meant to earlier.
yeah.
Then we kept keeping
Yeah.
on.
So I have a brother named Jabbar.
Okay.
That my father named him, and then my father took on the artist name Jabbar.
Okay.
As well, and I asked him why he likes Jabbar, and he says he loves the name, and it means it's like high energy.
Okay.
And then and he just loves it. So that was his artist name.
Okay.
And then when he passed away, I felt like it was part of my legacy for, to continue his legacy.
Okay.
That responsibility, even though we may have not started life together, but his legacy still lives through me
That's true.
in our relationship, and art was something that we loved and cherished. So I ended up taking on his name and adopting it. And it was interesting. Someone reached out to me the other day and asked me, like, is that your real name? I was like, no. He said, but do you know what that name means? And he said, in my country, that name means fearless.
Okay. And what country was he from?
I can't remember what he
Okay.
said. It was an African country.
Okay, cool,
But he
cool.
said it means fearless.
Cool.
And I was like, wow.
That's
Like,
awesome.
that would describe me. I think that would describe my
yeah,
father, too. Like,
100%,
he was very fearless.
Okay.
He was a very, very stubborn and fearless
I
man.
gotcha.
But I think it just comes full circle, like, and to have something that has so much weight and meaning in different ways. And so, so that's Jabbar.
Cool, man.
It's
And
this
what was
man.
your father's birth name?
His name was Jack McCourt.
Okay.
And I was able to honor his work in my exhibition too, which was really amazing because I didn't receive anything from him other than my memories, but he did leave me two of his greatest pieces of his art. And I wanted to show that because he always wanted to show people his work. And so I was like, well, let me just show it through my artwork. And then, and one of the things I wrote on his art piece is like, look, Dad, we made it.
Damn, dude. Congrats
So it's
for
really
that.
cool, yeah.
It is. And then to
Sure.
not have him there, but then to know, like,
Yeah.
you can tell that to your inner soul,
Yeah.
and your inner soul's connected to his still.
And I
man.
know he's proud of me.
Yes,
I know he is,
100%,
you know?
100%. And I'm so glad that you can hold on to the good
Oh, yeah.
part that you did share with them.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
amazing, man. That is absolutely awesome and a perfect way to end this. So,
Yeah, sure.
y'all, if like I always say, if you like this, subscribe, tell your friends, like it, share it on Facebook, whatever, and then go show my man Jackie some love. Go
Yeah,
follow him on
sure.
everything, and then let's just keep spreading this positivity. So, thank y'all for listening. Bye.